Arthur, a tyrannical king, once ruled the world with an iron fist. During his rise to power, Arthur slaughtered enemies, nuked cities, and committed countless atrocities, all for the sake of power. However, one day, reflecting on his actions, he was overcome with guilt and died of a heart attack. As he descended into the abyss, a voice offered him a second chance, warning him not to waste it. Moments later, Arthur opened his eyes to find two people looking at him. The man introduced himself as Reynold, Arthur's father, while Alice, his mother, also looked on. They didn't expect their newborn to understand, but they were overjoyed. Arthur slowly realized these were indeed his parents, and he had just been born. He struggled to believe he was a baby again, yet his parents cared for him tenderly. Despite his happiness, he disliked being stuck in a baby's body. His head felt oversized, he couldn't speak, and he involuntarily soiled his diaper every few hours, losing all control. Then, he witnessed something stranger, Reynold channeling energy into his fists, shattering a boulder. Arthur was astonished. Despite his years as a ruler, he knew nothing of this power. Reynold, proud of his feat, turned to his family for praise, but a falling rock struck his head. Alice, having anticipated such an accident, used magic to heal Reynolds, cautioning him to be more careful. While Reynold might show off, his serious punches could easily kill a wild boar during hunts, making him invaluable to his party. Returning from a hunt, Reynold prepared for a welcome hug, but remembering he was covered in boar blood, he went to clean up first. Arthur learned two things. This world was dangerous, necessitating weapons for protection, and he needed to learn to fight to live freely. Back home, Alice suggested a nap for Arthur, which he surprisingly welcomed. In his past life, peaceful sleep was rare due to constant assassination attempts. Months passed, and Arthur's limbs grew strong enough for him to move. His first act was to look in a mirror, finally accepting his baby form. His parents found his fascination with his reflection cute. Later, when Alice put him down for a nap, Arthur put his plan into motion. Once alone, he threw his blanket from the crib, climbed down, and crawled to the library while Alice did dishes unnoticed. In the library, he grabbed a book to learn about this world. He discovered the continent was called Dicathan, divided into the Dark Kingdom, dwarves, the Elamur Kingdom, elves, and the Sappan Kingdom, humans. Although no one had nuked cities there, Arthur sought more knowledge. Another book explained the lack of advanced technology. Magic existed. People manipulated mana within their bodies for two purposes: augmentation, enhancing strength, defense, agility, and conjuring, projecting mana to control phenomena. Arthur found no mention of Alice's healing magic, assuming she was an exception. Most people manifested mana at puberty, learning to control it through a mana core, similar to the key that granted Arthur power in his past life. Focusing his energy, Arthur felt his mana core begin to develop. Before he could continue, Alice found him, worried sick. Relieved he was unharmed, she held him, noticing something different. Arthur feared she sensed his mana, but she had simply noticed he had soiled himself again. 2 years passed. Alice wrote in her journal, grateful for Arthur's healthy growth but concerned by his lack of smiles. Outside, Reynold was giving Arthur sword lessons. Arthur seemed interested, but Alice was furious at Reynold for letting a 2-year-old play with a dangerous stick. Arthur knew not to anger Alice. To avoid further dangerous activities, Alice took Arthur to town. He was excited for first-hand information about this world, observing weapons and unfamiliar substances. He even witnessed fire magic up close, making the trip invaluable. Exhausted, Arthur struggled to stay awake, and Alice wanted him to nap. Despite the limitations of his new life, Arthur enjoyed life with loving parents, a stark contrast to his orphanage childhood. He soon fell asleep on Alice's shoulder. Carrying him to his crib, she told him how proud she was of his curiosity and adventurous spirit, assuming he inherited it from Reynold. She knew he would eventually want to explore the world, and while she preferred a peaceful life for him, she would support his happiness. The next day, Arthur watched Reynold practice magic in the yard, interested in seeing it up close. Rocks floated, a seemingly impressive feat by Reynold's standards, but rather pitiful to Arthur. Reynold's strength lay in augmentation, not conjuring. Inspired, Arthur tried to train, but Alice called him for a nap. Unable to speak, Arthur whined near the bookshelf, but Alice insisted on rest. Arthur then employed a new technique, pouting. His baby cuteness proved effective. Alice relented and let him read. Alone, Arthur practiced with his mana core, having made significant progress over 2 years. Gathering mana fragments, he had formed a core. With more effort, he might cast his first spell. However, underestimating his mana strength, he accidentally blew up the house. Alice and Reynold outside were mostly unharmed, though Reynold's back was badly burned. They rushed inside, fearing for Arthur's life. In the ruined library, they found Arthur unharmed, the source of the explosion. At barely 3, he was already a powerful mage, a feat impossible for his age. He stood proudly, but the collapsing house posed a new threat. 2 roof beams fell towards him. His toddler legs were too slow. Alice and Reynold rushed in to save him. Alice shielded him, while Reynold used magic to block the debris. Arthur was shocked. No one had ever risked their life for him. Alice, relieved, cried, and seeing her tears, Arthur cried too. Such care was foreign to his past life as a ruthless king. He recalled an assassination attempt where the culprit's family faced horrific punishment. Arthur's mercy was a swift execution. Now, his Mondays involved training with Reynold. Reynold wanted Arthur to use gauntlets, but Arthur, with a lifetime of sword experience, refused. So, Reynold also used a sword, reinforcing it with mana. To his shock, Arthur did the same, easily cutting through Reynold's blade. Realizing Arthur was too talented for him to train, Reynold considered a professional teacher and went to discuss it with Alice. Alice vehemently opposed sending Arthur away. They had agreed Reynold would teach fighting, and she would teach magic. However, Reynold pointed out Arthur's feat with the sword, despite being just a toddler. He argued for a proper teacher to nurture his extraordinary talent. Alice conceded Arthur's talent, but hated the thought of him alone in the city. They argued until Arthur suggested they all go to the city, solving everyone's concerns. They agreed and began preparations. The next day, a carriage arrived carrying them and their friends, the Twin Horns, who had helped rebuild their house. Adam, the leader, introduced himself. Angela introduced herself and her chess, nearly choking Arthur. Darren gently intervened. Arthur then noticed Jasmine on the carriage roof. She remained silent. The others explained she was Jasmine, and the final member was Helen the Archer. With introductions complete, they set off. Alice asked Arthur about his first big trip. He said yes, but internally, he mused on the primitive transportation compared to his past life's flying cars. After traveling most of the day, they camped for lunch. Wolves attacked. The wolves were foolish, charging directly and quickly being defeated by the adventurers. Arthur found the display interesting, his first real combat experience in this world. He resolved to become strong enough to handle such threats. With wolf meat available, they planned a plain grilled dinner due to lack of spices. Alice noticed Reynolds' slightly injured arm and offered to heal it. Jasmine cautioned her to wait. The others gathered around, aware of healers' rarity and vulnerability. Once Alice healed Reynolds, they resumed their activities. Adam, wanting exercise, challenged 4-year-old Arthur to a practice spar. Adam, aware of Arthur's strength, imbued his spear with mana. Arthur did the same, channeling magic into his feet. As they clashed, Arthur vanished, reappearing behind Adam. He lost his footing, allowing Adam to recover. They exchanged blows, but Arthur's toddler body was too light, and he was knocked back. The others caught him, scolding Adam for nearly hurting him. Adam insisted he couldn't hold back Arthur's surprising strength, suspecting Reynolds' secret training. In reality, Arthur's abilities were self-taught. Jasmine approached Arthur, impressed, and asked him to teach her his footwork magic. Arthur, wanting to keep it secret, was met with her persistent gaze. He knew he would likely have to teach her eventually. The next morning, the journey continued. During breaks, Adam gave Arthur basic spear lessons, and Helen taught him archery. Arthur, only experienced with swords, learned quickly. Grateful, he decided to teach Jasmine his speed-enhancing magic. By channeling magic into the feet and using wind magic simultaneously, one could greatly increase speed. Jasmine replicated it perfectly after one demonstration. Later, Arthur read a magic book in the carriage, with Jasmine inexplicably close, constantly finding excuses to be near him. The next morning, Jasmine gave Arthur a knife as thanks, a rare gesture of affection from her. They continued their journey. While Arthur read, bandits suddenly attacked, surrounding the carriage. The bandit leader ordered the capture of the women and children for slavery. The bandits charged. The Twin Horns and Reynold were individually stronger but outnumbered. Reynold was thrown into the carriage, badly injured. Alice wanted to heal him, but Reynold forbade it, fearing the bandits would target her if they knew her power. Instead, he told Arthur to take Alice and run. She was pregnant. Arthur hesitated, but Reynold insisted on Alice's safety. At Reynold's signal, Arthur prepared to flee with Alice while Reynold held off the bandits. The bandit leader sent men after them, but Reynold intervened. He clashed with the leader, fighting fiercely to protect his family. While Reynold occupied the leader, other bandits went after Arthur and Alice. Adam and Jasmine threw daggers, clearing a path for their escape. Arthur, who once took without regard, now fled to protect someone precious. After running for several minutes, Arthur thought they were safe, but a magic-wielding bandit on a cliff attacked with a wind spell. Arthur, too late to react, pushed Alice aside, taking the hit himself. The blast knocked him off the cliff. As he fell, he threw Jasmine's knife at the bandit. The string wrapped around the bandit's ankle, pulling him down with Arthur. The adventurers tried to save Arthur, but he was too far. As he fell, Arthur felt a strange peace, knowing he had protected his family. He understood the desperation of the man he had executed in his past life. He hadn't hesitated to sacrifice himself for Alice. Though he didn't regret it, he wished for more time with them. Somehow, Arthur survived the fall, ending up in a cave. He encountered a terrifying monster and regretted seeking shelter there. He tried to sneak attack it, but the monster easily swatted him away, telling him to calm down and that it just wanted to be friends. Wary, Arthur was badly injured and needed food. The monster offered fruit from the cave wall. Arthur hesitated, but his injuries worsened. He tried to get up, heard a snap, and cried out. The monster told him it was a miracle he survived the fall. It offered to answer questions if Arthur ate the fruit. He was hesitant, but found the berries delicious. Once full, Arthur asked about his parents. The monster, unable to leave the cave, used its long-distance vision to show Arthur that his parents had defeated the bandits. Relieved, Arthur thanked the monster. Since he was stuck there, he decided to befriend it. The monster's name was Sylvia, and she was kind. Over the next few days, Arthur rested and healed while Sylvia watched over him. Once recovered, Arthur wanted to go home, but Sylvia warned the journey was too dangerous alone due to magical beasts and bandits in the elven forest outskirts. Sylvia could open a dimensional rift to send Arthur home or to a safer place, but it would take time. Arthur practiced swordsmanship to pass the time. Days passed. Arthur enjoyed Sylvia's company, but knew little about her, only that she was a terrifying-looking but kind creature hiding from something. After sword practice, Arthur trained his mana. Sylvia was impressed by his early mana core development, something he hadn't been taught. She demonstrated accumulating mana while casting a spell, a technique Arthur realized would make him incredibly strong. Before teaching him, Sylvia asked what he would do with such power. Arthur recalled his family's near demise by bandits and vowed to destroy anyone who threatened them. Sylvia flicked his forehead, disapproving of his answer. She wouldn't teach her technique to someone with such a mindset. She explained that while she could easily kill him, she could also be gentle. She urged him not to let anger and hatred control him, leading to an empty life. She asked again what he would do with the power. This time, Arthur focused on the smiles of his loved ones and replied he would use it to protect them. Sylvia was pleased. Meanwhile, outside the cave, a monster resembling Sylvia was tracking her, closing in. In Arthur's past life as king, he was a tool of the senators, forced into violence he disliked. Back in the present, Sylvia taught Arthur her mana accumulation technique. He practiced, feeling his strength increase. He thanked Sylvia, but she sensed someone approaching, pushed him into rocks, and told him to be quiet. Arthur saw another monster identical to Sylvia. Sylvia seemed to know him and was surprised he found her. The second monster demanded Sylvia come with him, but she refused and he attacked. Arthur wanted to help, but Sylvia telepathically told him not to worry. The monster tried to persuade Sylvia, threatening to kill her. Sylvia refused and revealed her true form, a dragon. In this form, she unleashed immense power, firing a blast at the monster. He blocked it, warning she would die using such power in her weakened state. Sylvia, aware of the risk, didn't care. She had lived a long, happy life. She pushed the monster into a wall, but he retaliated with blasts. Sylvia took damage but was more concerned about Arthur's safety. The monster launched another blast. Unable to dodge without hitting Arthur, Sylvia used her full power to intercept it, temporarily stopping time. While time was stopped, she told Arthur to come out. He did, wanting answers, especially about her being a dragon. But time was short. Her time stop wouldn't last. She quickly opened the dimensional rift she had been preparing, but due to her injuries and haste, it led to the middle of nowhere instead of Arthur's home. She had hoped to avoid the dangerous forest, but now had no choice. Confident in Arthur's survival skills and the technique she taught him, she wasn't worried. She asked again what he would use his power for. Without hesitation, Arthur replied he would only use it to protect his family. Satisfied he wouldn't use it selfishly, Sylvia prepared to give him a few parting gifts. So, Sylvia conjures an egg and a feather before Arthur. She instructs him to wrap the egg with the feather and to cherish it. As a final gift, she imprints her will onto Arthur's arms, leaving a mark that resembles full sleeve tattoos, much to Arthur's confusion. Sylvia, lacking the strength for a detailed explanation, tells him he will eventually understand its use, regretting she won't be there to guide him. She then apologizes, admitting she could have sent him home sooner but selfishly enjoyed his company, a decision that ultimately endangered him. Arthur feels helpless, unable to save Sylvia despite her teachings. He doesn't care that she's a dragon or a monster, she's family. He calls her mother, but Sylvia reminds him he already has one. Arthur then suggests grandma, which Sylvia loves, asking him to repeat it, which he happily does. Though saddened by their impending separation, time is running out. Sylvia nudges him towards the portal. Arthur, understanding, takes her gifts and steps through. At the last moment, he hesitates, urging Sylvia to join him, but she can't. She closes the portal, sending Arthur away. Time resumes, and the other monster's blast hits Sylvia, seemingly fatally. She collapses. The monster, wary, approaches her still form. As he gets close, Sylvia unleashes her remaining energy, incinerating him and everything within a meter. During his teleportation, Arthur hears Sylvia's final message, asking if he remembers her words about the right way to use his power. Arthur remembers, though deeply saddened. Sylvia explains that the world is often sad, but Arthur has the power to change it for the better, one step at a time, drawing on his past life as a king. Though she didn't condone his past rule, she believes that without hatred consuming him, he will become a great king who improves the world. Moments later, Arthur awakens on the forest floor, vowing to fulfill Sylvia's wish. But first, he needs to find his way out of the forest. After being teleported into the elven forest, Arthur begins his journey to return home. But while he is walking, he suddenly hears a blood-curdling scream from across the woods. It sounds like it's coming from a little girl, so he immediately gathers mana in his feet and begins racing to check it out. He jumps up into a tall tree for a good vantage point, and once he is up there, he can clearly see a group of bandits kidnapping a little girl. She tried getting away from them, but the bandits have already grabbed her and are covering her mouth to stop her from screaming anymore. Since the girl is an elf, they plan to sell her as a slave on the black market for a huge profit as soon as they leave the forest. So they tie her up and stuff the girl in the back of their carriage. As Arthur watches the whole thing unfold, he has flashbacks to the moment he and his family were attacked by bandits as well. He recalls hearing the bandits mention something about keeping him and the women in the group alive so they could be sold as slaves later, and it really pisses him off. The first thought that comes to mind is that he should slaughter all the bandits for committing such a heinous crime. But he remembers what Sylvia told him about controlling his rage, so he takes a moment to think and calm down. He realizes that if he attacked right now, it would put the girl's life in danger, so he decides to be patient and wait for the right chance to strike. All the bandits get in their carriage to start riding out of the forest, and Arthur follows them closely from the shadows. By nightfall, the bandits are forced to take a break and set up camp since they can't travel in the dark, and Arthur is contemplating whether he should continue following them until they get to a human town or attack them now. But then he overhears the bandit talking about how his favorite race is elves, so Arthur realizes he can't risk leaving them alone with the girl any longer. However, he still needs to wait for it to get dark before he makes his move. So Arthur sits down and starts meditating to prepare himself for all the murderer charges he's about to catch. Once it is sufficiently dark, Arthur opens his eyes and begins planning his attack. He notices that the bandits have a group of horned wolves on a leash, and he finds it odd that the wolves are obeying a group of humans with no resistance. He takes a closer look at them and realizes that they are wearing magic collars to force them to be obedient, and he can use this to his advantage, so he throws a couple of rocks at the wolves to rile them up. The bandits hear their wolves howling over there, and the leader orders one of his men to hurry up and go shut those damn wolves up. The bandit immediately gets up and kicks one of the wolves in the neck to get it to stop barking, and the second the bandit is distracted, Arthur seizes the opportunity. He summons a mana blade before jumping down behind the bandit, and within a few seconds, the bandit has been slashed to death. Arthur then takes the bandit's weapon, and as another one comes to check what all the commotion is, Arthur jumps on his back and slits his throat. That's 2 bandits down already, but Arthur's body is already getting exhausted, so he needs to end this quickly. Just then, another bandit comes to check why the other 2 are taking so long. So Arthur tries to insta-kill this one as well, but unfortunately, he missed the vital organs, so the guy screams and alerts the other bandits of Arthur's presence. The bandit leader realizes that Arthur is a mage, so he knows this isn't going to be an easy fight, but he also doesn't want to kill Arthur because selling a mage kit on the black market would earn him even more money than the elf girl. The bandit leader begins channeling magic into his arms and swings at Arthur, so Arthur jumps back and tries to counter with a kick, but the bandit leader managed to dodge. Arthur tries to catch him off guard by throwing his knife at him, but the bandit catches it and uses it against him. As a result, Arthur is knocked to the ground, and the bandit lifts him up by the ankles to taunt him. He tells Arthur he is no match for an adult when it comes to strength, and Arthur realizes that the bandit is right, so he decides to attack with his magic instead. He casts a fireball right on top of the bandit's knee, and while he is screaming out in pain, Arthur stabs him in the head with his knife. Now, all that's left is to finish off the bandit that Arthur injured earlier, and once he's dead, Arthur goes to check on the girl in the carriage. The girl was blindfolded the entire time, so she has no idea what's going on. So Arthur tells her he has taken care of all of the bandits, so she is safe now. Her name is Tessia, and as Arthur leads her out of the carriage, he tells her she can go home. But Tessia suddenly notices some blood on Arthur's hand, and she gets really worried about him. Arthur realizes that it's normal for children to be horrified at the sight of blood, so it might not be a good idea to let her see all the dead bodies on the floor. He asks Tessia to wait over here for a minute and goes to cover up all the bandit bodies with a tarp. She asks Arthur what happened to the people that kidnapped her, and Arthur doesn't want to admit that he killed them, so he just says they got into a bit of an accident, so they won't be bothering her anymore. The girl doesn't seem to have any more questions, so Arthur gets her stuff out of the bandit carriage for her and says goodbye because he needs to continue heading home. However, Tessia grabs his arm and begs him to stay because she doesn't want to be left alone. If Arthur leaves her here by herself, she might get eaten by tree ghosts or something. He asks her if she knows how to get home, and she does know the directions, but she has no idea how long it will take to get to her village. Arthur doesn't like the idea of taking maybe tour, but he also knows there's no chance that Tessia will make it home alive if he doesn't help, so he ends up agreeing to escort her back home. Arthur looks over at the wolves that the bandits captured, and he briefly considers using them for transportation, but he has no idea how to maintain control over a wolf, so he wants to just leave them behind. However, Tessia says they should at least remove the magic collars on the wolves so they can return to the forest. Arthur warns her that the wolves might attack once she removes the collars, but she thinks she'll be fine since she hasn't done anything to anger them. And as a resident of this forest, it is her job to take care of the creatures that live here. She eventually takes the collars off the wolves, and sure enough, the wolves peacefully walk back into the forest. The next morning, Arthur and Tessia begin walking in the direction of the elf village, and after a while, they take a break to eat. Arthur cooks up a little stew and tells her she has to eat it because she'll need the energy for the long journey ahead. Tessia thinks the stew smells weird, but Arthur isn't exactly a world-class chef. It's literally made out of nothing but dried meat and salt, so it doesn't taste good, but it's better than nothing. Tessia asks Arthur why he came to the Elshire forest in the first place since it's rare for humans to come here, much less a lone child. So Arthur explains how he got separated from his family and ended up here. While they are on the topic, Arthur asks Tessia what it's like to live in the kingdom of Eleanor, and she absolutely loves it here. All of her parents are often busy with work, so she spends most of her time with her servant and her grandfather. They continue their journey, but since Tessia doesn't know how far away her village is, it's hard to gauge how long this journey will take. And to make matters worse, those wolves that Tessia released have been following them for a while now, so Arthur is really wishing he had just killed them from the start. That night, Arthur decides to stand guard outside the tent to make sure the wolves don't attack him and Tessia while they are sleeping, but after a while, Tessia pokes her head out and asks Arthur to come to bed. Arthur tells her that he's not sleepy, so he's going to stand guard out here, but she's way too scared to be alone, so she pleads with him to come inside the tent with her. Arthur eventually gives in, so he decides to just keep watch from inside the tent for Tessia's sake. She's trying to pretend that she's not scared, but she also demands that Arthur stay by her side at all times. Before she goes to bed, she wants to learn a little about the human kingdom, so she asks Arthur if it's true that all humans are perverts who marry multiple wives. Arthur is surprised to hear Tessia say that and asks where she heard it from, so she explains that her grandfather told her. Arthur can't deny that people like that exist, especially in the Gerard family, but for the most part, humans are modest people. Tessia believes Arthur, so she turns over and falls asleep immediately. The wolves didn't attack, so by morning, Arthur and Tessia got up and continued their journey. Tessia has really been warming up to Arthur over the past few days, and now that she has had a chance to forget about the slave traders, she seems a lot happier. Although she is still pretty hopeless when it comes to survival skills because she can't even cross a creek on her own, so Arthur has to carry her across. All of a sudden, Arthur is hit with a strange throbbing pain in his chest, and he has no idea what's wrong with him. Tessia worriedly runs off to go find some medicinal herbs that might help, but Arthur doesn't think this is a regular illness. While he's propped up against a tree, the wolf from before shows up, and Arthur is starting to panic because he is in no condition to fight it off if it decides to attack right now. Tessia soon returns with the herbs. So Arthur warns her to stay away, because the wolf might be dangerous, but to his surprise, the wolf just drops a dead pig in front of Arthur, and walks away. Arthur is confused by what just happened, but Tessia assumes the wolf was trying to thank him for his help earlier. That night, Arthur and Tessia set up camp, and enjoy some roasted meat by the fireside. This tastes a lot better than the stew, so Tessia really enjoys it, and while she was searching for medicinal herbs earlier, she happened to find some mushrooms, so she offers some to Arthur. But he probably shouldn't have accepted the strange mushrooms, because it gave him a bad case of diarrhea. After Arthur is done emptying his guts, he is really tired, so he is seconds away from passing out, but Tessia keeps talking to him. She is telling Arthur about how her grandpa used to read her storybooks about the human and dwarven kingdoms, so she always wanted to visit those places, but she was never allowed to since elves don't trust people from the other races. Just then, Tessia realizes that Arthur hasn't been listening to a single word she said, but she knows he's just sleepy, so she covers him with a blanket and wishes him a good night. The next morning, the two continue their journey, but the pain in Arthur's chest is getting worse. Tessia apologizes for not being able to help, but Arthur tells her it's not a big deal. Changing topics, Tessia asks Arthur if it's alright for her to call him Artie since she thinks of him as a friend after all. They spent so much time together, and the two of them have gotten really close. Arthur says he doesn't mind being friends with her, and Tessia is surprised that he didn't react much. Arthur then jokingly swears to cherish every moment the great Lady Tessia thinks of him as a friend, but that makes her upset, so she tells Arthur to stop acting so childish. Arthur thinks it's funny that she would say that when she was the one begging him to stay by her side at all times because she was scared, but Tessia says that's an entirely different thing. Jokes aside, now that Arthur thinks about it, Tessia is the first friend he has ever made. Even in his old world, people were so scared of him that he never truly had anyone whom he could call a friend till now. Just then, Tessia spots something that looks familiar, so she tells Arthur to come take a look. Arthur comes over expecting to see a cool-looking stick, or something, but to his surprise, he is standing in front of a huge tree with a portal in the middle of it. Tessia tells Arthur that this is the entrance to Elf Village, so she extends her hand and tells him to come with her. Unfortunately, the elves still really hate humans, so the moment Arthur steps into the elf village, he's caught and held at sword point. He looks to Tessia for help, hoping she'll speak up for him, but to his surprise, Tessia just stares at him coldly and says nothing. Seeing this, Arthur thinks she has betrayed him and set him up to be killed. He can't believe he was foolish enough to think anyone would want to be his friend. After all, he's been betrayed many times in his past life. The elves are just about to cut off his head while Tessia watches silently. It turns out she wasn't part of the plan, though it's unclear why she didn't speak up earlier. As soon as she hears the guards mention killing Arthur, she tells them to stop. One of the guards warns her that Arthur is a dangerous human, but Tessia says he's not dangerous at all. In fact, he's the only reason she made it back home safely. Her words should have made the guard think twice, but instead, he accuses Arthur of brainwashing her and still wants to kill him. Before anything happens, a man shows up and orders them to let Arthur go. His name is Virion, Tessia's grandfather, and the former king of the elf tribe. He's much more reasonable and believes Tessia when she says Arthur saved her. He also apologizes to Arthur for how he was treated, although it did seem suspicious that the missing princess returned with a random human. Arthur feels relieved that he's no longer in danger, but is shocked to learn that Tessia is actually a princess, something she never told him, even after traveling together for days. Right then, Tessia's parents arrive after hearing that their daughter has returned. She runs to hug them, clearly happy to see them. If Tessia is a princess, that means her parents are the king and queen of Elenor, but they aren't as calm as Virion. As soon as Tessia's father sees Arthur, he demands to know why a human is in his kingdom and tells his soldiers to kill him. But no one moves because Virion had already told them to leave Arthur alone, and they're all scared of him. Virion explains to the king that Arthur is the one who saved Tessia, so he shouldn't be treated like a criminal. Tessia also asks that Arthur be welcomed into the castle as a guest. Her father is unsure since humans are normally banned from even entering Elenor, let alone the royal castle. But not wanting to upset Tessia, he agrees. Now that everything is cleared up, everyone prepares to go to the castle. Before they leave, Virion tells Arthur he wants to speak with him later. Arthur is a little cautious since he can tell Virion is very powerful, but he doesn't have time to think about it because Tessia drags him off to show him around. It's the first time Arthur has seen the elf kingdom, and he's amazed by how different it is from the human world. But the hatred for humans is still strong. Every elf stops and stares at him as he walks through the village with Tessia. Still, no one dares say anything rude since Arthur is now an official guest of the royal family. The only one treating him kindly is Tessia, but Arthur still wonders why she waited so long to help him when he was about to be killed. Suddenly, the pain in Arthur's chest returns. It keeps getting worse, and he still doesn't know why. When they reach the castle, Tessia is warmly greeted by her servants and tells them to treat Arthur with kindness and respect, even though he's a human. Once that's settled, she asks Arthur if he wants to play with her. But Arthur says he needs to talk to her parents first. They probably want to know what happened to Tessia and how they got back. They all go into the meeting room, and Tessia joins because she doesn't want to be left out. She even suggests getting snacks, so it almost feels like a tea party. But they still have serious things to discuss. Tessia's father finally introduces himself. His name is Alduin, the king of Elenor. His wife is Muriel and his father is Virion. Arthur introduces himself as a humble commoner from the kingdom of Sapin, and he knows that someone like him would normally never be allowed in Elenor, let alone inside the royal palace. Arthur appreciates their kindness. Alduin is surprised by how mature Arthur is, despite being just a child. But more importantly, he wants to know what exactly happened with Tessia and how she went missing. Arthur explains everything, how he got separated from his family during a bandit attack and ended up in the elven forest. He leaves out the part about meeting Sylvia in the cave. Then he explains how he found Tessia being kidnapped by slave traders. Alduin is furious that humans tried to sell his daughter into slavery, but Arthur reminds him that elves have done the same thing, so it's not just a human crime. Moving on, Virion asks how Arthur managed to save Tessia, and Arthur says he killed the slave traders. One of the guards yells that a child couldn't possibly do that, but Virion shuts him up and says he'll lose his job if he keeps talking. Arthur doesn't seem like he's lying, so Alduin says he believes him. Now that they understand the situation, Arthur makes a request. Since he got stuck in the forest after the bandit attack, he asks if they can help him get home. Alduin is angry that a human would ask a favor from the elven royal family. But since Arthur went out of his way to escort Tessia home, it's only fair. Plus, if he refuses, he'll have to deal with Tessia's temper, which he really doesn't want. So, he agrees to help. However, the teleportation gate that leads to Sapin is sealed and only opens once every 7 years during a meeting between the 3 tribes. That meeting happened 2 years ago, so the gate won't open again for another 5 years. Arthur doesn't want to wait that long, and Alduin also doesn't like the idea of a human staying in Elenor for 5 years. So, he says he'll send soldiers to escort Arthur back to Sapin. Since it's already late, Arthur can rest in the castle and leave the next morning. Arthur thanks Alduin, but his chest pain is getting worse, and Virion notices something is wrong. Later, a room is prepared for Arthur, and he takes a bath. But the pain keeps getting getting worse, and Arthur starts to fear he might die. After his bath, he steps onto the balcony for fresh air. It helps a little, but he knows he needs to figure out what's causing the pain. Then he looks up and sees Tessia with her parents on the balcony above. This makes him think of his own parents. He doesn't know if Reynold and Alice survived the bandit attack, but he believes they did. They're strong. Still, he really wishes he could talk to them. Tessia sees that Arthur looks sad and goes to speak with him after finishing her talk with her parents. She apologizes for how her father treated him, but Arthur says he understands. Decades of war between elves and humans make it hard to trust, especially when it comes to someone's daughter. Talking about parents reminds Arthur of how far away he is from his own, and he worries they might blame him. He also blames himself for not being able to protect them during the bandit attack. But Tessia grabs his face and shakes his head. She says she doesn't know much about his parents, but if they're like hers, they'll be happy to see him again. Then, the corridor fills with glowing fireflies. Surrounded by light, Arthur remembers his parents' smiling faces. They've never shown him anything but love, so why does he think they'll hate him now? He realizes his trauma from his past life has made him overly suspicious, even of Tessia, who clearly cares for him. Suddenly, Arthur senses a projectile coming at Tessia. He catches it and charges his mana to strike the attacker. But to his surprise, the attacker is Virion. Arthur can't believe he tried to harm his own granddaughter, but Virion explains that he only threw a couple of fireflies to test Arthur's reflexes. He's impressed that Arthur reacted so fast. He just wanted to see if Arthur really had the strength to defeat those slave traders. Tessia tells her grandfather to stop messing around, but Virion says that's not the only reason he's here. He wants to have a sparring match with Arthur to test his strength. Virion uses magic to create a sword for Arthur and lifts Tessia out of harm's way. Arthur agrees and charges at Virion, but he's too fast. Even with Manta-boosted speed, Arthur can't keep up. When he thinks he has an opening, Virion shatters Arthur's wooden sword with his palm. A piece flies toward Tessia, so Arthur throws the rest of his sword to stop it. Then Arthur attacks with pure mana, but Virion counters easily. Virion's strength is overwhelming, but Arthur doesn't give up. After being knocked back, he charges again and manages to land a small hit on Virion's forehead. It doesn't hurt much, but Virion is impressed that Arthur got past his defenses. He wants to keep going, but Tessia pinches him and tells him to stop bothering Arthur. Arthur says it's okay. He's honored that someone as powerful as Virion wanted to spar with him. Then Virion says he wants to take Arthur as his disciple. Arthur is shocked and asks if he's serious. Virion says he is and asks if Arthur accepts. Arthur hesitates since he still hasn't contacted his parents. But Virion says he knows a way for Arthur to talk to them right now. Before Arthur can respond, another sharp chest pain hits him, and Virion tells him he knows the cause. He says Arthur has inherited a beast will, and unless he agrees to become Virion's disciple, the beast will is going to kill him. After hearing such horrible news, Arthur tries to sleep, but he's struggling. The anxiety of being away from his family, combined with the fear that he might die soon, gives him a terrible nightmare where he's haunted by a sleep paralysis demon. He suddenly hears someone calling his name and opens his eyes to find Tessia sitting on top of him. She's been trying to wake him up for a while, but he keeps muttering about some kind of monster, which is starting to annoy her. She tells him to hurry and get ready because Virion is already waiting for him outside. Arthur gets out of bed and starts changing. While he's doing so, Tessia asks if he's really planning to stay and become her grandpa's disciple. Arthur hasn't decided yet. It depends on whether Virion can really help him contact his family. As long as Arthur gets the chance to talk to his parents and let them know he's okay, he'll be satisfied. Once he's dressed, he and Tessia head downstairs. But as soon as they open the doors, they hear Alduin arguing with Virion, furious at the idea of Arthur living in the Elf Kingdom. Taking in a human as a disciple would go against centuries of elven tradition, but Virion doesn't care. He likes Arthur and plans to make him his disciple, no matter what anyone says. Tessia tries to speak up for Arthur, but Alduin ignores her because she clearly supports Arthur staying. Coincidentally, Virion doesn't care for Alduin's opinion either. So, he tells Arthur and Tessia to get in the carriage. They've got somewhere to be. On the long ride to meet Virion's mysterious friend, Tessia falls asleep. Arthur, now feeling more comfortable, calls Virion grandpa and asks if it'll take much longer. Virion is amused by how quickly Arthur dropped the formalities, but if Arthur ends up living under his tutelage, he'll be like part of the family. Virion doesn't mind Arthur's casual tone. In fact, he's happy that Tessia finally has a real friend. As an only child and heir to the throne, most kids avoid her, and those who did befriend her only ended up betraying her trust. So she finds it hard to open up to people. But with Arthur, she's always smiling and having fun, and Virion is thankful for that. Arthur, who also has deep trust issues, feels like he can trust Virion, who just seems like a sincere and kind grandpa. Eventually, they arrive. Arthur wakes Tessia, and they all step out. Arthur is curious. This mysterious person must be very special if someone like Virion came all the way to see them. Virion stomps on the door and yells for Rania to come out. When he puts his ear to the door, he gets smacked in the face as it swings open. After regaining his composure, Virion introduces Rania as a special mage, and with her abilities, she might be able to help Arthur contact his family. She invites them all inside to begin. But once Arthur steps in, all he sees is an ordinary house with a bucket of water on the table, so he starts wondering how she's supposed to help him. Rania explains that she is a special type of mage called a seer. As a seer, she can look into the past and future of people. She momentarily uses her powers on Arthur and quickly realizes he's an unusual case. There are parts of his past she can't see. But that's not surprising since she only sees fragments. That said, Arthur didn't come for a glimpse into his past or future. He wants to let his family know he's alive. Rania slides a bucket of water in front of Arthur and tells him to think deeply about his parents to get the best result. She begins using her power, and within seconds, Arthur sees visions of his parents. Alice has just finished cooking stew, too much for two people, and though Reynolds loves it, neither of them can enjoy it without Arthur. For all they know, he died after falling off the cliff. Reynolds blamed himself so much that he nearly turned to alcohol, but had to care for his pregnant wife. They eventually moved to the city, where Reynolds found work and managed to afford a house within weeks. But no amount of success could ease the pain of losing Arthur. Suddenly, they hear Arthur's voice, but they can't see him. They fear it's his ghost. Arthur assures them he's alive and living in the elf kingdom of Elenwer. He doesn't fully understand the magic, but thanks to a friend, he's using a special spell to talk to them. He wants to come home, but can't right now. Something is wrong with his body, and he won't survive unless he fixes it. He promises to return once he's healed, though he's unsure how long that'll take. He asks them not to blame themselves, it was his choice, and he'd make the same one again if it meant keeping his family safe. Reynolds and Alice are overwhelmed with joy to hear Arthur is alive. Saying goodbye again brings Arthur to tears, but he's glad they got to speak. He resolves to never make them worry like that again, and to do that, he needs to become stronger. So, he asks Virion to make him his disciple. Now, they just need Alduin to approve Arthur living in the castle. Alduin is still opposed due to his deep hatred of humans, but Tessia reminds him that Arthur saved her. If he rejects Arthur, it would make him look like an ungrateful savage. Alduin argues that Arthur's presence might spark issues in the Elf Kingdom, but Virion already planned for this. He tells Alduin to publicly announce Arthur as his disciple. No one would dare challenge Virion's authority. With that, Arthur is officially granted permission to live in the royal palace. After the meeting, Alduin approaches Arthur to apologize for his earlier behavior. He still doesn't like humans much, but Arthur seems like a good kid. And since Arthur saved Tessia, it's Alduin's duty to repay him. He tells Arthur to think of himself as part of the family now. Arthur is surprised by how quickly Alduin and Miel changed their stance, but it makes sense considering how much Virion and Tessia stood up for him. Arthur thanks Alduin, calling it an honor to be welcomed into the royal castle. But Tessia interrupts, this isn't enough. If Arthur is really welcome, she wants him to be allowed to play outside with her. Since Alduin has already accepted him, he agrees. With that, Tessia excitedly drags Arthur into town to show him around. He's once again fascinated by elven culture. Tessia knows the area well and mentions a nearby shop that sells popular snacks. She warns him they need to hurry before everything sells out and pulls his arm to rush him along. Arthur happily follows her, but accidentally bumps into a kid on the way. It's an honest mistake, but the kid starts insulting Arthur and yells about filthy human germs. Arthur wonders how the kid dares to be so rude within punching range, but Tessia tells him to just ignore it. Causing trouble over something so minor isn't worth it. Normally, Arthur would have just walked away from someone like Ferrith, But when Ferrith starts insulting Tessia, saying she shouldn't hang out with trash like Arthur and should be spending time with him instead, Arthur decides to have a little fun. Ferrith, being a noble with an overinflated ego, clearly thinks too highly of himself. So Arthur pretends to be excited to meet him, only to deliberately mispronounce his name as Phoebich. Ferrith immediately gets mad, but Arthur fakes an apology, saying he'll make sure to show proper respect to Fifth next time. Then he turns to leave with Tessia. But Ferrith isn't done. He might be arrogant, but he's not dumb. He knows Arthur was mocking him, and he refuses to let it slide. He challenges Arthur to a duel, claiming it's a matter of family honor. Arthur can't believe how ridiculous this is. In his old world, a duel usually meant a fight to the death. Why would some kid casually challenge him like this? But judging from the amused looks of nearby adults, it's clear duels here are more like formal sparring matches than actual life or death battles. So Arthur shrugs and accepts. Tessia tries to stop the whole thing, warning Ferrith that Arthur is Virion's disciple. Challenging the student of the strongest man in the kingdom is, frankly, stupid. But Ferrith believes that there's no way a mere human could defeat him. He even goes so far as to say that refusing the duel would disgrace Virion's name. Arthur agrees, and the duel becomes official. When the fight begins, Ferrith charges in confidently with a wooden stick. But, like most people, he had a plan right up until Arthur punched him in the face. Ferrith drops instantly, unconscious before he even hits the ground. His friends rush over to help, but Tessia isn't surprised. She already knew it would end like this. With the duel over, she grabs Arthur's hand and pulls him away. They've got more places to explore. The two spend the rest of the day together, visiting shops, eating snacks, and enjoying the town. Eventually, they take a break on a quiet balcony, and Tessia asks when his training with Virion starts. Arthur tells her it begins first thing tomorrow, though something is clearly on his mind. He reflects on what Virion told him. The training is going to feel like hell, like being submerged in boiling tar, and he'll have to endure it for years without his family by his side. Virion wanted to be sure Arthur was truly ready, and Arthur was. Even now, despite knowing how painful it will be, he's excited to begin. He needs that strength to build the future he wants. Tessia nods and says she'll train hard too. She doesn't want to fall behind, but for now, she wants to enjoy the rest of their playdate. So, she grabs his hand again and suggests they go get some more food. A few years have passed, and both Arthur and Tessia have been training rigorously under Virion's instruction. Their bond has deepened during this time, though Tessia's naturally competitive spirit keeps things intense between them. After pushing herself hard in training, Tessia is exhausted and takes a break, giving Virion a chance to give Liam a lesson about magic. Virion explains that once someone stabilizes their mana core, they can begin using elemental magic, water, fire, wind, and earth. However, affinity to these elements varies by race. Elves excel at wind and have strong aptitude for water and earth, but struggle with fire. Dwarves are strong with fire and earth, but weaker in wind and water. Humans, uniquely, can use all four, although individual affinities still vary. Tessia then asks why Arthur hasn't started training with his mana core if it's so crucial. Virion answers that Arthur's current problem is due to the beast will inside his body. It grants great power, but it's also causing instability between his flesh and mana, resulting in chest pain. Until Arthur reassimilates his mana core, training with mana could be dangerous. Tessia jokes that she must be stronger than Arthur for now, since she can use mana in her attacks. Arthur fires back that it's not a fair comparison. Among elves, awakening mana before the age of 10 is rare, but Tessia awakened hers at 9, allowing her to train alongside Arthur ever since. Virion then tells Arthur it's time to awaken his beast wool, a risky but necessary step. If successful, it should stop the pain in his chest and mark him as an official beast tamer. Arthur agrees and the procedure begins. But it goes violently wrong. Arthur screams in pain and releases a huge surge of energy that blasts Virion and Tessia away. Though the awakening is technically successful, the strain causes Arthur to pass out immediately. They take him back to the castle to recover. When Arthur finally wakes up, Virion is at his bedside and asks how he feels. Arthur says he's okay. So Virion presses further. Was there anything unusual about the beast will? Arthur hesitates but finally tells him the truth. The will came from a dragon, specifically Sylvia. Virion is stunned. Dragon wills are incredibly rare and powerful, and it explains Arthur's extreme reaction. Virion warns him to tell no one, as even mentioning that he possesses a dragon will could bring dangerous attention. Virion also informs Arthur that, in 4 months, he's scheduled to return home. Arthur is confused. He thought he had 2 more years before the next Interkingdom meeting, but apparently a cultural exchange event has moved up the timeline. This means the portals to Zyra City will open much sooner than expected. Arthur asks if Tessia knows yet, concerned she'll be upset. Virion says the king and queen are informing her now. That night, Arthur lies in bed, thinking about his departure while holding the egg Sylvia gave him. Then, the egg begins to crack, a baby dragon hatches. Arthur is surprised, but it seems cute and harmless, so he picks it up until it suddenly bites his arm. Arthur yelps in pain and drops the dragon, but when he looks at his arm, instead of ordinary bite marks, he sees a crest forming. This crest is a magical link between Arthur and the dragon. It allows him to sense its thoughts, even if he can't fully understand them yet. Arthur decides to name the baby dragon Sylvie in honor of her mother, Sylvia. After settling back to sleep with Sylvie curled beside him, a few hours later, Tessia walks into his room, intending to talk about Arthur's upcoming departure in 4 months. But when she lifts the covers and sees Sylvie next to him, all thoughts of the serious conversation vanish. She's completely taken by the cuteness of the baby dragon. Startled awake, Arthur initially panics, but quickly realizes Tessia is just obsessed with Sylvie. He groans and goes back to sleep, leaving Tessia fussing over the dragon. Later that day, Arthur and Tessia head to the training grounds. Tessia tries her best to win Sylvie over, but Sylvie, still a bit traumatized from earlier cuddles, avoids her. When Virion sees Sylvie perched on Arthur's head, he's stunned. He never thought he'd see a dragon in real life. Arthur explains that Sylvie hatched as a result of the beast wool awakening, and while he worries her presence could cause issues, Virion assures him that dragons are considered mythical, and no one would believe Sylvie is one. Just claim she's an exotic beast, and people will accept it. Then, Virion announces it's time for training. Now that Arthur's beast will is awakened, he needs to train both his beast core and mana core, the most effective way being through real-life combat. To demonstrate what a beast will can do, Virion transforms into his beast form, a shadow panther, which grants him the ability to control wind and eliminate all sound from his movements. Arthur can't even track Virion's presence and gives up almost immediately. Virion appears behind him, amused. While the ability is powerful, it's extremely mana-intensive, so he never meant to fight seriously. He was just showing Arthur the potential of beast wills. With that, Arthur's real training begins with a sword. Over the next few days, Arthur rapidly improves. The chest pain has vanished, and his body is toughened enough to keep up with Virion's shadow form. Outside of training, Arthur spends time playing with Tessia like a normal child. One day, while Arthur and Tessia are out on a date, Arthur bumps into a boy, Ferrith. Arthur doesn't recognize him, but Ferrith, insulted, demands a rematch. The duel is over in a flash. Ferrith is face down in the dirt. Still confused, Arthur is reminded by Tessia that Ferrith was the boy who challenged him to a duel years ago. Arthur remembers the fight fondly and offers Ferrith a hand, who accepts, giving up on further challenges. Arthur asks if Ferrith will be joining the upcoming cultural exchange, and Ferrith says yes, bragging that he was chosen for his talent, though in truth, all noble children were invited. Arthur asks if Tessia will be going to, but apparently not. The royal family doesn't want to risk their helpless princess being kidnapped again. Tessia punches Ferrith in the face so hard, he's knocked out cold. Arthur quickly grabs her and runs away before a crowd can gather. Once they're safe, he scolds her, reminding her she can't go around punching people, especially as a princess. Tessia, upset and defensive, calls him an old man and runs off crying. That night, still in tears, Tessia is surprised when Arthur climbs up to her window. He invites her for a walk in the forest, hoping to cheer her up. As they walk, Tessia asks if it's safe. Arthur reassures her if trouble appears, they're strong enough to escape. The view of the night sky is worth it. As they sit by a campfire, Tessia starts to doze off, trying hard to stay awake because she knows this may be the last quiet moment they share. She pretends she's cold, not scared of ghosts, she insists, and asks Arthur to tell her about the human kingdom. He admits he doesn't know much since he's never been there. She says she wishes he could stay forever, and Arthur says he would if he could, but that would mean never seeing his family again. Before they can talk more, she falls asleep beside him. Finally, the day of Arthur's departure arrives. Before he leaves, Virion gives him a gift, a magical compass that will guide him back to the Elf Kingdom if he ever wants to return. Arthur is grateful but notices Tessia is missing. Virion explains she couldn't bring herself to watch him leave. Just as the portal opens, Arthur hears Tessia call his name. She runs toward him, but falls halfway, and Arthur rushes to help her up. She rambles emotionally, warning him to take care of himself or she'll never forgive him. Understanding how much she truly cares, Arthur pulls her into one last hug, quietly telling her that he's going to miss her a lot. After arriving in the city of Cyrus, Arthur reunites with his parents and discovers he now has a little sister named Ellie. Alice and Reynolds have been telling her stories about Arthur for years, so she's thrilled to finally meet him. Once inside, Alice immediately asks if Arthur is feeling well. The last time they spoke, he mentioned being sick, so she wants to know if he recovered. Arthur reassures her that he's fine and there's no need to worry, although he has a lot to share. He recounts everything he experienced after being separated from them, except for his encounter with Sylvia and her beast will. Instead, he tells them about meeting Tessia and his time in the Elf Kingdom seeking a cure. Alice presses again, concerned that if he were to relapse, they wouldn't be able to help him here. Arthur assures her that won't happen. Since he can't reveal the truth about the beast will, he fabricates a story that his sickness was due to awakening too early, which caused his mana to become unstable. Though he feels bad lying to his parents, he believes it's necessary until he becomes strong enough to handle future threats. Just then, Reynolds notices Sylvie and asks where she came from. Arthur quickly claims he found her in a mana beast cave and decided to keep her as a pet. Ellie instantly takes a liking to her. Moving on, Reynolds becomes curious about Arthur's mana core stage. When Alice scolds him for picking a fight so soon after Arthur's return, Reynolds defends himself, saying he just wants to gauge his son's strength. Arthur doesn't mind and turns the conversation around, asking what kind of job allows Reynolds to live in such a nice house. Reynolds explains that he's a security instructor at the Xyrus auction house and that his mana core is currently at the dark orange stage. Arthur is impressed, as reaching the orange core stage is quite difficult. Mana cores range from black to white, with lighter colors being stronger. As an augment, Reynolds clearly trains his body rigorously, but Arthur hadn't expected that he also trained his mana core. Proud, Reynolds asks about Arthur's stage. When Arthur replies that he's at light red, Reynolds curses in surprise, forgetting Ellie is in the room, and now she won't stop repeating the bad words. Still shocked that Arthur is just one breakthrough away from surpassing him, Reynolds challenges him to a sparring match in the garden. Arthur agrees, but before they head out, the living room doors swing open and Vincent enters, asking if Reynolds' son is back. Reynolds introduces him as Vincent Helstia, his boss and the owner of the auction house. Vincent and his wife Tabitha are happy to meet Arthur, having heard so much about him. Arthur is respectful, and Vincent is surprised by his manners, joking that he couldn't have learned them from Reynolds. Then, Vincent and Tabitha introduce their daughter, Lilia. She is initially reserved, but immediately becomes affectionate when she sees Sylvie. With Arthur's permission, she starts cuddling her. Meanwhile, Reynolds mentions that since Vincent technically owns the house, they should probably ask his permission before causing any damage. Alarmed, Vincent asks what's going on, and his fears are confirmed when he learns about the sparring match. As everyone heads outside to watch, Vincent still questions whether it's really okay for someone as young as Arthur to fight Reynolds, but Alice assures him that Arthur has always been a fast learner. Plus, it's not like he has a reason to lie about it, so Tabitha tells Vincent to just sit down and enjoy the show. In reality, Arthur could have broken through to the orange stage years ago, but while training with his beast will, he wasn't allowed to train his mana core. Still, he has other tricks he's eager to show off. As the match begins, Arthur and Reynolds start trading blows, and Reynolds is impressed by how strong Arthur has become. However, he still overpowers Arthur in terms of raw strength. Eventually, some distance forms between them, and Reynolds says he wants to kick things up a notch. He engulfs his hand in flames and tells Arthur he can back out if he wants. In this world, all mages have a type of elemental mana they're most compatible with. While conjurers can easily manipulate elements, augmenters usually can't unless they reach a certain level. At that point, they can identify their compatible element and use it to enhance their attacks. Imbuing his body with fire magic makes Reynolds a much tougher opponent. So, Arthur decides to go all out too and channels mana into his arms. They clash again, more evenly matched this time, though Arthur still gets blown back by Reynolds' force. Thanks to all the knowledge from his past life, Arthur's training with Virion was extremely effective, so much so that he mastered fire magic early on. Virion even encouraged him to begin training to surpass regular fire magic, and this match shows the result. Arthur gathers mana in his hands again, and this time, electricity crackles around him as he generates lightning. Reynolds is stunned. He can't believe Arthur is really capable of using a higher form of fire magic. But Arthur isn't done. While controlling lightning, he simultaneously manipulates water from the fountain to attack Reynolds from behind. Reynolds blocks the attack, completely shocked that Arthur can use both fire and water elements. He's beyond proud of his son, hugs him, and asks where he learned all that and if he has any more surprises. Arthur explains that he only recently learned to use lightning magic and still struggles to control it, but he's making progress. Ellie runs out onto the field to check on her father and brother. Meanwhile, Vincent and Tabitha stand in awe. No ordinary child should be capable of what they just saw. Later that evening, everyone sits down for dinner, and Vincent can't stop praising Arthur. Reynolds says he's known Arthur was special ever since he awakened his mana at age 3. That sounds impossible to Vincent, since even the geniuses of this world only awaken around age 8, though most of them don't blow up their house in the process. Reynolds bursts out laughing at the memory, but laughs so hard he falls out of his chair. Just then, Vincent suggests that Arthur should enroll in Xyrus Academy. Reynolds had never considered it, since the academy is mainly for wealthy and influential mages. But Tabitha agrees with Vincent and even offers to sponsor Arthur's tuition, believing someone so talented is destined for greatness. Alice hesitates to accept, knowing they've already received so much help, and Arthur is only 8, while the academy's minimum age is 10. However, Vincent reveals that he personally knows the director of the academy, thanks to his work, and he's confident he can arrange an exception for Arthur. However, before Vincent can say anything more, Arthur speaks up. He calmly but firmly points out that it would be nice if they asked for his opinion before making such a big decision about his future. After all, he just reunited with his family today, and the last thing he wants is to immediately talk about leaving again for school. With that, Arthur excuses himself from the dinner table and begins walking through the halls, still unfamiliar with the layout of the house. Just then, Lilia calls out to him, warning that he's heading toward the basement and might get lost. She offers to guide him instead, and since Arthur doesn't have anything better to do, he agrees. She leads him to one of the break rooms, where the house servants usually gather during their free time. All the servants warmly welcome Lilia, who often visits them to relax when she has the chance. Even though Arthur just arrived today, they all already know who he is after all. He burned up the garden earlier during his sparring match with Reynolds. Arthur apologizes for the damage, but none of them seem upset. One of the servants even jokes about it. Lilia asks Maria, the cook, if there's still any leftover duck. There is, but Maria teases Lilia, warning her not to overeat because she's been getting a bit chubby. The playful banter lightens the mood, but Arthur also picks up on something more serious. One of the maids quietly explains to him that Lilia often comes here when she's feeling stressed. Her parents, eager for her to awaken as a mage, push her into constant lessons. Lilia does want to become a mage, but all the pressure clearly takes a toll, and this break room is her escape. Later that night, Arthur is relaxing with his parents, who are still overjoyed to have their little boy back. He's grown and changed on the outside, but to them, he's still the same Arthur on the inside. With his talents, he's destined for greatness, but even if he weren't, they would still love him just the same. They'd love to keep talking, but they know Arthur must be exhausted from the day. As they get up to leave and wish him good night, Reynolds stays back for a moment. He wants to clarify something. He admits that Vincent might have seemed pushy, but everything he suggested came from a good place. Neither he nor Vincent expects Arthur to go to Xyrus Academy if he doesn't want to. The choice is Arthur's, and it always will be. The next morning, Arthur wakes up to some surprise guests, members of the Twin Horns Adventurer Party, who heard he was back and came to visit. Arthur is happy to see them, and Angela is especially thrilled. She immediately pulls him into a big, heartfelt hug. After Angela finally lets go, Arthur greets the rest of the group. Jasmine, without a word, starts gently checking his arms and torso. At first, it seems strange, but she's just making sure he hasn't suffered any lasting injuries. Once she's satisfied he's okay, she hugs him too and apologizes deeply. She still blames herself for not being able to protect him the day they got separated, and the relief of seeing him safe overwhelms her. A little later, everyone settles down to catch up. Arthur is surprised to learn that the Twin Horns recently took a job in the remote city of Estadine, which was lucrative enough to keep them busy for a while. They only returned to the capital because of a new commission. Hearing about their travels makes Arthur realize how little he actually knows about the kingdom of Sapin, let alone the continent of Dicathan. Becoming an adventurer could be a great way to learn more about the world, but at the same time, that would mean leaving his family again, and he's not sure if he's ready for that. Arthur, completely exhausted after using his magical powers, mutters that he could only control the magical orb for a short time. Looking at Sylvie, he smiles and says, "I'm back." Then turning to her, he adds, "Come on, Sylvie, it's time for your bath. You can't just wander around this mansion doing nothing." While bathing her, Arthur starts thinking about the princess. He recalls how the maids had said that whenever the princess feels stressed, she comes here to eat. Arthur wonders what could be stressing her out so much. He then remembers being told that the princess's parents want her to become a mage, but her magical powers haven't activated yet. Because of that, she can't enter the Mage Academy. In the next scene, Arthur finishes bathing Sylvie and says she looks beautiful now. Just then, his mom walks in and announces, "Now it's your turn to get cleaned up." Next, Arthur is taken to get a haircut. He's about to attend an important event where many influential people will be present, so looking sharp is necessary. During the haircut, Arthur asks the barber why he chose this job. The barber replies, "Because I enjoy it, and don't worry, you'll look like a star when I'm done." When the haircut is complete, Arthur's face is glowing. His mom compliments him, and his sister says, "Now you really look like my big brother." His mom then adds, "I'm taking you to the auction house, so I had your hair done. Now let's get you some clothes." They head to a clothing store, and Arthur's mom begins shopping for outfits. Arthur notices a group of people wearing matching uniforms and asks who they are. The princess explains that they are students from the Magic Academy. Anyone who attends that academy gets royal treatment. She says they can do whatever they want and no one dare speak against them. Soon after, Arthur spots something called a beast stone and asks his mom about it. She explains it's a special stone. If you touch it and have a beast-type monocore, it will glow and grant you powers. If your core is strong enough, the stone will shine brightly, and you could earn so much money that we'd never have to work again. Meanwhile, the princess is trying to convince her mother to let her buy one of these stones. "I want to see if I have magical powers," she says, but her mother refuses, saying the stone is far too expensive. The princess suggests buying a used one, but her mother ends the conversation firmly. Later, while everyone is eating, Arthur notices the princess sneaking off into an alley. He follows her and finds her staring at an old dragon stone. He asks, "Do you really want to buy this?" and reminds her that her mother said it wasn't useful for her. But the princess insists, "I just want to check if I have magical powers." As she reaches for the stone, she accidentally bumps into a student from the Magic Academy. She quickly apologizes, but the student becomes furious. Just as tensions rise, the shop manager steps in and asks them to stop. The academy student scoffs, asking if there's a problem. Before things escalate, the princess's mother arrives and demands everyone calm down. The academy student arrogantly states, "Don't you know who I am? I'm from the Magic Academy." The princess's mother responds, "And we are from the Hagar family. Ever heard of us?" At the mention of the Hagar family, everyone goes silent. Their name carries significant weight within the academy. Later, Lilia's father confronts the family, having heard about the incident. Her mother quickly reassures him, saying she diffused the situation before it got worse. Her father then tells Arthur not to worry, this won't affect his Magic Academy entrance. Lilia, feeling left out, asks her father, "Are you planning to give my spot in the academy to Arthur? The seat you had saved for me?" Her father quickly denies it. "Of course not, your seat is yours. I'll get Arthur another one." But Arthur admits that he hasn't decided whether he wants to attend the academy yet. Lilia is visibly upset. She feels ignored by her parents, who seem to be focusing all their attention on Arthur. She storms off, calling them all mean. Later that evening, Arthur goes to invite her to dinner, but she remains silent. A flashback reveals how her father had promised her a seat at the academy since she was young. hoping she would become a scholar. Lilia had promised she'd make him proud. Back in the present, Arthur finds her again. She apologizes for how she acted earlier. Arthur tells her it's okay. She then confesses that although her father always wanted her to become a scholar, her magical powers still haven't awakened. She feels like she's disappointed her parents and believes they've given up on her. Arthur reassures her that's not true. They love her deeply. If you want proof, I have a plan that'll help you hear it for yourself. Lilia agrees to the plan. Later, Arthur delivers a letter to Lilia's parents. It says that Lilia has gone to the place where Arthur learned magic and will return after 2 years. When her parents read the letter, they are heartbroken. They finally realize how much they've hurt their daughter by making her feel useless. Lilia's father, now in tears, says, "I'm sorry, my daughter. I didn't understand your feelings." Arthur then says, "Did you hear that, Lilia?" She steps forward, revealing that she had been listening the whole time. Arthur explains that the plan was to help her understand how much her parents care about her. Lilia apologizes for lying to them. Her parents embrace her and say there's no need to be sorry and that she doesn't need to become a scholar just to make them happy. But Lilia insists, "No, I will become a scholar for your happiness." In the next scene, Arthur sits her down and helps her try to awaken her magical powers. Her younger sister joins too, wanting to become stronger like her brother. Arthur instructs them to close their eyes and meditate. However, in the darkness of their minds, they see nothing. Arthur decides to help and uses his magical powers to give them a glimpse of what lies within. Gradually, light appears in the darkness and their powers begin to awaken. Everyone is overjoyed. They celebrate with a small party full of happiness and hope. The final scene shows a grand carriage approaching the auction house carrying mysterious crates. A man steps out of the carriage, but who is he? That will be revealed in the next episode. Arthur arrives at the venue where a grand auction is about to take place. As he gazes at the massive structure, his younger sister exclaims how it looks just like a castle. The princess, clearly excited, can barely contain herself and rushes inside. Arthur's family enters the building and he notes the presence of many adventurers and alchemists. This place is known for rare, precious items that are nearly impossible to find elsewhere. That's why he's here. The princess, meanwhile, admires a beautiful monostone on display and says she wants to buy it immediately. In the next scene, Arthur's father is shown at work, instructing guards to be vigilant. No matter what happens today, we can't allow any mistakes. No one unauthorized must get in. Arthur notices that his father seems more serious than usual, and his mother explains that when he's working, he's always like this. Just then, a royal announcement declares the arrival of the king, and the 10th round of the auction begins. Heavy security is placed outside the palace, anticipating potential threats. The auctioneer introduces the next item, a rare sword embedded with a monostone capable of generating electricity. This energy can be used to paralyze and restrain opponents. Bidding starts at 50 gold coins, with each participant raising it by 10 coins until someone finally wins. Arthur admires the sword's craftsmanship and expresses his desire to try it, but his mother gently reminds him they don't have enough money to bid. She praises his maturity, thinking to herself how wonderful the world would be if all children were as understanding as Arthur. Arthur asks where Sylvie is, and his mom replies that she was last seen with his sister, but now her whereabouts are unknown. Arthur decides to go look for Sylvie. Meanwhile, the auction continues with the next item, a rare young beast. Although it appears small now, the announcer says it will grow into a powerful I-rank beast. Bidding starts at 100 gold coins. Just when the offers begin trickling in, the king suddenly bids 1,000 gold coins, shocking everyone. However, the judge reminds the crowd that such grand gestures are expected from the king. After winning the beast, the king announces that he's entrusting it to his general. Arthur's father, confident that Arthur can raise it properly, gives his blessing, and Arthur promises he'll do his best. In the next scene, Sylvie is seen near one of the royal servants. The servant seems delighted to have found her, but Arthur appears just in time and identifies the man as one of the king's aides. Arthur firmly tells him that Sylvie is not an auction item, but his partner. Sylvie quickly runs to Arthur's side. The servant apologizes, mistaking Sylvie for an exhibit. Arthur scolds her gently for leaving him alone, and Sylvie apologizes. The servant tries to assert that Arthur isn't strong enough to raise such a beast, but Arthur ignores him until the man attacks. Arthur effortlessly blocks the fire magic and stays calm until the man threatens his family. That's when Arthur's aura explodes with fury, so powerful it spreads across the room, suffocating everyone nearby. The king immediately senses something deadly and powerful in the hall. Arthur's father starts evacuating the guests, while Arthur reins in his emotions and apologizes for losing control. Just then, Sylvie stands by Arthur and threatens the servant, saying if he lays a finger on their family, she won't let him go. The servant, now trembling, realizes he's in deep trouble. Later, the nobles gather and question Arthur's father, blaming him for not detecting the source of the aura earlier. Still unaware it was Arthur, the nobles demand punishment. The servant volunteers to raise the beast himself as penance. The king agrees, but Arthur's father intervenes, stating that the beast rightfully belongs to his son, not the servant. Only Arthur has the authority to decide. The king then personally asks Arthur to hand over the beast, promising no trouble if he complies. Arthur refuses respectfully. The king asks a second time, pressuring him. Arthur's father again defends his son's right to keep the beast. The king offers Arthur another beast in exchange, but Arthur refuses, saying that Sylvie is irreplaceable. This enrages the king, who accuses Arthur of questioning the value of his own children. Arthur calmly asks, "Would you sell your children?" The king is outraged. Arthur explains that just as the king treasures his children, he too cannot part with Sylvie. The king's advisor commands the soldiers to attack Arthur for his insolence, but Arthur, in a flash of rage, defeats the soldiers easily. The advisor yells at the others for being unable to subdue a child. The servant, seeing this, decides to act and prepares to attack, but Arthur stops time. Everyone freezes except the servant. Arthur approaches and breaks the man's leg, stating coldly that no one threatens his family. Sylvie joins in, reiterating that anyone who harms their family won't be spared. The servant, now in shock and pain, watches helplessly. After using such immense power, Arthur collapses unconscious. Later, he regains consciousness and feels guilty for losing control. His mother appears relieved to see him awake. She tells him that while he was unconscious, they were forgiven, and the advisor claimed the spell backfired, injuring his own leg. She had tried healing Arthur but failed, though she never lost hope. In the following scenes, Arthur and his mom go shopping. Arthur buys a small clip as a gift for his sister. His mom tells him he can buy something for himself too, but Arthur hesitates, knowing his father lost his job. She reassures him that she also works, making and selling cutlery to shopkeepers who value her craftsmanship. As they leave with their purchases, Arthur is visibly tired from carrying the heavy bags. Later, a messenger arrives to meet Arthur's father, bringing an apology from the king for the earlier incident and offering compensation. The messenger praises Arthur's manners and power, suggesting his parents continue to guide him well. Arthur's father agrees and is told he can return to work starting tomorrow. After the visitor leaves, Arthur's father tells him, "They tried to hurt you and even attacked, but you're safe now." He then hands Arthur the money, saying, "It's yours to spend as you see fit." Arthur thanks him and thinks to himself, "If I want to rule this world someday, I must become even stronger." The final scenes show Arthur arriving at the academy. As he enters, he notices many nobles and even an owl, which catches his attention. He chases after it, only to arrive at a mysterious old woman who welcomes him, saying, "Finally, you've come, Arthur." She told him, "Arthur, I've been waiting for you." Asura's Academy was famous for graduating scientists and businessmen, and many children sought to learn magic there because it was a prestigious institution. We then moved to the school principal, who was in an interview with Arthur. The principal welcomed Arthur and wondered if Vincent was exaggerating or not, then asked him to prepare to show how strong he was. Arthur gathered his strength and used the power of wind, throwing a group of stones at the principal, but she easily blocked and destroyed them. Arthur felt he wasn't getting what he wanted from wind power, as he usually used fire and water more intensely. He then used fire power and shot arrows at her. But again, the principal blocked them with ease, which annoyed Arthur. He used his power once more and attacked, but the principal used a wind barrier, blocking him and pushing him to the ground. However, the principal was impressed by his strength. Though he slightly overestimated his power, she acknowledged his distinctive magic and combat skills. She asked him to continue attacking and warned him about the risk of losing consciousness. Then, she used her special sound element, which caused Arthur pain. He realized she was a unique sorceress. The principal then told him he had passed, and said his magical condition made her want to teach him herself. She suspected he also possessed powers like the earth element and believed he had even more hidden abilities. Arthur found her as smart as he expected and revealed that he also had the water element. The principal then asked if he wanted to tell her anything else, considering the long distance he traveled just to show his power. Arthur admitted she was right and said he came because he needed the influence and authority she held to protect his family. If she intended to share that power with him, he would join the academy and would respect her as a teacher and be indebted to her for everything. This surprised the principal, who had never seen such boldness in negotiation, not even from Queen Sabin's family. She saw that he was extremely confident in himself. Arthur believed his offer was worth it and that she would agree. He also mentioned that if he were to join the academy, it should be after he reached the same age as the other children. The principal was surprised he wanted to join after 3 years and told him that joining now would make him much stronger. She asked why he was hesitating, but Arthur explained that he wanted to live life to the fullest and become an adventurer, discovering everything the world had to offer. The time for the academy would come afterward. The principal accepted his decision and asked if he had told his family. Arthur said he hadn't yet, but planned to. She agreed to make the arrangement after he convinced his family. Back at Arthur's house, his mother refused at first, but his father tried to convince her. Arthur's mother saw the journey as dangerous, especially since they had just gotten him back. Arthur's father asked her to listen to their son's wishes, but this upset her even more as she wondered if he didn't share her feelings. His father suggested Arthur could go with someone to protect him, but she angrily refused that idea too, saying he was too young. Arthur explained that it wasn't a trip. He would return home every few months and could come back earlier if needed. He made her a promise. Eleanor asked if he would leave again, and he told her he would, but not right away. He was still looking forward to being home, but also wanted to see more of the continent of Decathlon, as he knew little about it and wanted to experience what they once did as adventurers. His mother reminded him that he still hadn't revealed his different elements and told him no more secrets. Arthur's father understood it was natural for his mother to worry about him and acknowledged that danger was part of an adventurer's life. He suggested sending someone they trusted to accompany him. After that, they gathered with a group of adventurers and asked if any would go with Arthur. Helen refused, saying he didn't like taking care of children, and even joked that he expected Arthur to kill him in his sleep. His girlfriend scolded him for being rude, saying he deserved it. Arthur's father agreed with her, but Arthur said it wasn't necessary. Arthur's father told them he had nothing to offer in return, but promised to repay the favor however he could. Then Jasmine raised her hand and volunteered, surprising everyone. Her friends knew she preferred to work alone, even more than with Adam, but she had changed because of Arthur. Arthur's father had expected Darden or Helen to volunteer, but in terms of combat skill, Jasmine seemed the best choice. Arthur's mother asked if she was sure, and Jasmine confidently said yes. Helen noted the decision was final, saying Jasmine had reached light orange rank last year and could use elements, so she was suitable. Darden also agreed, and Arthur expressed his gratitude, saying he looked forward to working with her. That night, they met Lilia, who was training alone. Eleanor told her it wasn't fair to train alone, and Lilia apologized and asked if Eleanor wanted to train too, but Eleanor declined. Later, Arthur told his father he wanted to go to the auction house to get a sword. His father agreed, and Arthur went there. After meeting the official in charge, he was directed to the weapons room, where he was amazed by the variety of weapons. Meanwhile, back home, Arthur's mother grew worried because he was late, but her husband reassured her that he had made his decision and would return soon. She agreed that he was right. At the auction house, Arthur searched through many swords but didn't like any of them. He tried different weapons until Sylvie appeared and caught his attention. Arthur then found a scepter, not what he was looking for, but when he picked it up, it was heavy, and he wondered if it needed elemental energy. He used his fire power, revealing a sword inside. Though heavy at first, he tried it on a box and easily cut it, leaving him amazed. He noticed mysterious words engraved on it, but didn't understand them. The sword then fell from his hand, but when he picked it up again, it became light and easy to control. Its size and grip perfectly matched his body, and Arthur thanked Sylvie for the discovery. He then struck another box and broke it effortlessly, realizing the weapon adapted to its user. He suspected it worked through mana channeling, so he placed the sword in its sheath and returned home. He picked up another sword and told his father he would take this one. Though not as flashy, Arthur liked it. His father tested it and said it lacked a bit of balance, possibly because the maker tried to make it lighter, but still thought it suited Arthur. He then asked Vincent for his opinion. Vincent said Arthur's happiness was all that mattered. Arthur thanked him and Vincent asked about the staff Arthur was carrying. Arthur explained they found it lying around and picked it up for training. Vincent hadn't known about the staff and asked Jameson to check the inventory. Jameson remembered it. An old man had once thrown it at him, complaining no one used it. Locals had inspected it and said it was just a strong staff, so he kept it. Jameson suggested Vincent have someone assess its quality, but Arthur quickly apologized, saying he only took it if it wasn't valuable. He liked it a lot and hoped to keep it. Vincent approved, saying it had only been gathering dust, which made Arthur very happy. His father, however, got annoyed at Vincent for agreeing so easily. Later, at dinner, Arthur helped his mother clean dishes, then followed Lily and Eleanor during their training. Afterward, he went to his room to prepare for life as an adventurer, continuing his training with his father and practicing with the staff. The next day, they celebrated Arthur's 9th birthday. His mother and the others were all very happy, and they prepared a feast. Vincent told everyone to eat freely without embarrassment. As night fell, it was time for gifts. Arthur opened them and found a pair of gloves adorned with jewels that had healing magic. Touched, he hugged his mother. Then, Vincent presented his gift to Arthur. It was a pair of connected rings, one for Arthur and the other for his mother. Whenever Arthur's mana decreased, his mother's ring would light up immediately. Helen then gave her gift to Arthur, a scroll that emitted sound. She told him it was very valuable, and that mana could be used to leave a message on the scroll, although it wouldn't allow a response. This amazed Arthur's father. Arthur thanked everyone for the gifts and told them he might leave tomorrow. He promised to do his best not to worry them. His father felt Arthur had spoken well. His mother then told him to be careful, not caring if he became famous or rich, only wanting him to be safe. Arthur went to his room to prepare his things, packed up, and came downstairs, where his family was waiting. His father noted that he looked neat, like a C-rank adventurer, but warned him not to get cocky, no matter how powerful he became, and reminded him not to try solving everything on his own, but to rely on Jasmine too. His mother approached and embraced him, telling him not to worry and assuring him she was fine. She asked Eleanor and Sylvie to treat Arthur well. She then urged him to go and reminded him not to forget wearing the ring. His father encouraged him, and Arthur said goodbye to everyone and left the house. When he stepped outside, Jasmine was waiting for him and asked if he was ready. He told her, "Let's go." The first step on Arthur's journey to become an adventurer is getting officially registered, so he and Jasmine head straight to the Xyrus Adventurers Guild for the rank assessment exam. Arthur has no idea how the process works, but after registering, a guild employee leads him to another room. Judging by Jasmine's expression, things seem to be going well. The reason Arthur wears a mask as an adventurer is because he may make enemies along the way, and he doesn't want trouble to follow him back to his family. He also wants to ensure that his family's connections don't affect his rank evaluation. That said, Jasmine, being an A-class adventurer, is influential too. They're introduced to Caspian Bladeheart, the guild leader, who informs Arthur that normally he would need to take a written exam and have his mana core assessed. However, since Jasmine is vouching for him, and because Caspian knows her father, he's willing to make an exception. Because Arthur is wearing a mask to conceal his identity, Caspian tells him a real name isn't necessary, but he'll need an alias. Arthur decides his adventurer name will be Note. With that settled, Caspian tells them to follow him to the arena for the assessment. Along the way, Arthur asks Jasmine if she's close to the guildmaster since he's being so accommodating. She admits she knows Caspian, but it's her father who has the stronger ties to the guild. When they arrive at the assessment arena, Arthur sees a battle already underway between two mages. A young water mage named Dian is being tested, firing a water blast at the instructor. The instructor easily counters it and vanishes in a cloud of steam, then reappears behind her and bonks her on the head. Though Dian lacks spatial awareness, her casting speed earns her a C-class evaluation, which she's happy about. Next is Elijah Knight. Before he can begin, the instructors pause to deliberate, then allow him to skip the test and declare him a B-class adventurer. This surprises everyone, including Jasmine and Arthur, but they stay silent. Then it's Lucas Wykes' turn. He's a spoiled, arrogant boy who irritates the instructor with his attitude, but she admits his talent is undeniable. At just 11 years old, he's reached the light orange stage, which is nearly impossible at that age unless your name is Arthur. Noticing Lucas's pointed ears, Arthur assumes he must be an elf, though it's rare to see one in the human kingdom. Lucas begins his test by summoning a flame guardian, but the instructor destroys it instantly with earth magic. He then creates a massive firestorm by slamming his staff into a rock pillar, an impressive move, but he quickly loses control of the spell and nearly burns himself. The instructor steps in just in time, extinguishing the flames and breaking his fall. Though she commends his raw power, Lucas refuses to listen and tries to sneak attack her during her critique. Luckily, Arthur throws his sword down to block the spell. At this point, the instructor decides Lucas lacks the discipline to be anything more than D rank. Furious, Lucas threatens to call his father, but the instructor calmly picks him up by the collar and drags him out. Now, it's Arthur's turn. Taking the test seriously, he stops holding back. His terrifying energy prompts the instructor to take a defensive stance. Just then, Caspian enters the arena and announces that he'll be the one to face Arthur. The instructor is shocked. Having a AA class adventurer sparring in an assessment seems like overkill, but Caspian assures her it's just going to be a light match. Caspian then asks Arthur if he's okay with the arrangement. Though Arthur wasn't expecting to fight one of the strongest people in the guild, he's actually looking forward to the challenge. However, if you were excited for the fight, too bad, because it skipped. After the cutscene, Arthur is officially registered as a B rank adventurer, completing the first step of his journey and allowing him to start living life to the fullest. Meanwhile, the two instructors visit Caspian in his office, asking why so many B rank adventurers this year are children. Caspian calmly explains that 6 months ago, the youth cultural exchange took place. Although not publicly announced, some children of other races were granted official certification to become adventurers in Sapin. Lucas Wykes is one of them. Despite breaking rules, he might still be promoted to B rank due to the influence of the Wykes family. However, since the Wykes are entirely human, Lucas was likely born from an elf slave. As for Elijah Knight, the instructors were given no information. He was promoted to B class without taking the test because someone influential vouched for him. Caspian explains that Elijah is a human raised in the Dwarf Kingdom, sent as a representative to adapt to human society. The guild isn't allowed to interfere with him much. The final anomaly was Arthur, and the instructors still find it odd that Caspian assessed him personally. But Caspian genuinely has no info about Arthur, not even his true identity. Still, he's sure Arthur has powerful connections, especially since his guardian is the daughter of the legendary Flamesworth family. The way Arthur wields a sword shows master-level skill. Though Caspian currently outclasses him, he knows Arthur will become incredibly powerful in the future. As Arthur and Jasmine leave the guild, Arthur reflects on how he's focused so much on magic training that he's neglected his swordsmanship. Just then, he bumps into Elijah and apologizes. Elijah warns him that interfering in someone else's match can make him a target, but admits he would have done the same. Lucas then butts in uninvited. Arthur tells him to back off, not wanting to deal with a rule-breaking brat. Lucas gets offended, grabs Arthur by the collar, and threatens him. But since they're in public and all newly promoted to B rank, too many eyes are on them. Lucas backs off, and Jasmine tells Arthur to come along. She has a destination in mind. She leads Arthur through a gate into the beautiful but quiet Beast Grazing Plains, a spot where low-rank adventurers gather materials and practice. But that's not their true goal. It'll take a full day of running to get there. Arthur is surprised by Jasmine's speed. It's his first real glimpse at the strength of an A-rank adventurer. The same thing happened during his match with Caspian. Even though Arthur thought he could win, Caspian easily overwhelmed him. He's been reflecting on his arrogance ever since. Suddenly, a loud crash sounds, and a wild boar bursts from the trees, going on a rampage. It even devours an adventurer. Jasmine quickly grabs Arthur and tells him to run. A monster like this shouldn't be in the plains, which means something went wrong. Soon, they find a destroyed carriage, likely from adventurers who captured the boar, but it escaped. The boar spots them and charges. It tries stabbing them with its long tongue, but they dodge. Jasmine tells Arthur to flee while she handles it. Using her wind magic, she lands a few strikes but nearly gets crushed when she loses her balance. Arthur catches her mid-fall and she thanks him. But with other newbies still in danger, Jasmine rushes to protect them. Arthur wants to help, but remembers how overconfidence earlier got him in trouble. This time, he waits. Once the boar focuses on Jasmine, Arthur charges in, imbuing his sword with fire magic and slicing the beast down instantly. Thanks to his precision, everyone is safe. However, Jasmine feels disappointed she couldn't protect Arthur. She shares how she originally became an adventurer to escape her family, the Flamesworths, known for their fire mages. Since Jasmine could only use wind magic, her parents called her a disgrace. Arthur yells that her family is stupid, there's no superior element. Jasmine laughs at his reaction, surprised to see him emotional. Arthur was angry because he too was called useless in his past life. What Jasmine's family did was cruel, but because they abandoned her, she met the Twin Horns, who taught her trust and teamwork. They scold her when she messes up, but she's grown because of them. She wonders if Arthur has changed too. Arthur isn't sure, but thinks of everyone he's met since his reincarnation. For their sake, he vows to become a better person and protect them. The end. The anime begins in 1830 with a girl screaming as she's being beaten. She pleads for help from a boy named Genta, who watches helplessly, saddened by the scene. The man, revealed to be her father, locks her in a confined space despite her pleas. Afterward, Genta checks on his sister and discovers she has escaped. He rushes to find her and sees her near a walkway. He notices that one of her eyes has turned red. Genta apologizes for not helping earlier, but Suzun reassures him, understanding he would have gotten into trouble. She asks him to leave her alone, but Genta refuses, saying they'll run away together. Suzun is relieved and agrees. They flee into the forest, where the weather is cold. A strange man appears and helps them. Genta, exhausted, passes out and later wakes to find the man carrying him, with Suzun beside him. They arrive at a village, which turns out to be a blacksmith settlement. Suzun feels uneasy, saying the place seems strange. The man takes them home, where his daughter greets them warmly. Genta and Suzun feel a sense of loss, seeing such a welcoming family. The man tells his daughter that the two have no one, so they will become part of their family. His daughter, Shirayuki, is overjoyed and introduces herself. When Genta calls her Shirayuki-chan, she tells him not to say that since they're family now. Genta is surprised by this new life. That night, Genta wakes up and finds the man cleaning a sword. He asks if he's a samurai, but the man replies, "No, I'm a guard who protects important people." Genta is amazed by his sword. The next morning, Shirayuki joins Genta, Suzun, and their new friend for a swim. Afterward, Chitose teases Shirayuki for eating too much dango and tells her to eat more vegetables. Shirayuki replies that she can't resist her mother's dango because she's so good at making it. Chitose goes to call her mom and the others head home. Genta asks Shirayuki about her mother. She says her name is Yokaz and that she likely allowed them to stay in the village. Genta asks if she ever leaves the temple, and Shirayuki says no because her mother is a Kaheim, a sacred priestess, someone with fire-based spiritual power. Her father serves as her protector. She explains that this power must be preserved and not used carelessly, especially around ordinary people. Shirayuki admits she hasn't seen her mother in years and feels sad about it. 3 years pass. Genta begins training with Shirayuki's father in wooden sword fighting, but loses repeatedly. He says, "I haven't made any progress," but Shirayuki's father encourages him, saying his strength is developing. He promises Genta will grow stronger with time, but must stay focused. As he leaves for work, Shirayuki hands him the sword he forgot, and they all say goodbye. Shirayuki checks on Genta and encourages him, calling herself his big sister. Genta laughs, saying he's older, but Shirayuki insists she's the most organized, so she counts as the elder. Just then, Suzun wakes up and asks what's going on. Genta says it's nothing, and Shirayuki announces it's time for breakfast. Both girls reach out to Genta, playfully dragging him along. After Shirayuki's father Mataharu dies, Genta becomes the village's protector. During a temple meeting, the current lady of the temple praises him, saying he's exceptional at slaying demons. Genta humbly replies that he's just doing his duty. The lady asks about the latest demon, and Genta explains that it disguised itself as a human to infiltrate the village. The head of the guard says the demon aimed to eliminate the lady of the temple. He explains that demons can live for thousands of years, but if they eat the liver of the Kaheim, they become immortal. One of the guards says, "We haven't confirmed the existence of this demon, and we can't verify this talk." The head guard responds that it doesn't matter and explains that the previous lady of the temple, Yakes, was killed by a demon. They only managed to defeat it because Mataharu sacrificed his life. The current lady of the temple believes the demons are after the sword Yara, a sacred blade passed down through generations. The head guard adds that the sword was crafted with immense skill in this town and is believed to hold magical power, katana, that has remained untouched for a century. Now, the demons seek to obtain that power. The lady agrees and acknowledges his point. Guard Kayamasa tells the head guard there's no need to worry, as the Kaheim has 2 guards to protect her. He also insults Genta, claiming the man has no talent beyond swinging a sword. Genta asks him, "Do you have a problem with me?" The lady of the temple intervenes, saying, "This place deserves respect. Such petty disputes don't belong here." Genta apologizes, and she turns to Kayamasa, asking, "Aren't you a guard too?" He answers, "Of course, I'm here to protect you." The head guard ends the meeting, and everyone leaves except Genta, which angers Kayamasa. The lady of the temple asks Genta if he's alone outside, and he confirms. She tells him to drop the formalities and walks toward him, which surprises him. She reminds him, "I told you before to treat me informally." Genta replies, "But you're the lady of the temple, and I respect you." She insists, "Then I ask you, when we're alone, to call me by my name. You're the only one left who can." Genta calls her Shirayuki, causing her to blush. She admits she's being selfish because she relies on him for everything. Genta tells her it's not a problem, reminding her that the Kaheim is supposed to rely on her guard. Shirayuki thanks him and informs him that Suzun is here, waiting to see him. Genta visits Suzun, who was asleep. He warns her that if anyone finds out she's here, she could be executed due to the temple's rules. Shirayuki explains that Suzun came because Genta hadn't returned home for 3 days while fighting demons. Genta replies that her visit still breaks the rules. He gently wakes Suzun and tells her he misses her, but she must never come to the temple again. It's forbidden. Suzun asks, "Then why can you come here whenever you want?" Genta answers, "Because those are the rules and we must follow them." Suzun agrees quietly. Genta then senses someone coming and tells her to stay silent. She assures him she knows a way out and quickly leaves. The head guard approaches Shirayuki and asks to speak with her about some suggestions. She invites him in but tells Genta to wait outside. Genta protests, not wanting to leave her alone, but Shirayuki insists. As he waits, she tells him that the safety of the city now lies in his hands, and she hopes he'll keep defending it with all his strength. Genta reflects on the past, remembering when Shirayuki's mother passed away. Shirayuki told him she would be appointed the new princess in her mother's place. She expressed her love for the city. Her mother sacrificed everything to protect and said it must remain strong. She added that she hadn't seen Genta since then. Genta promised her, "I'll keep working until I see you again. I'll grow stronger, follow in Mataharu's footsteps, fight the demons, and become the village's guardian." Returning to the present, he leaves the princess's room. Meanwhile, 2 demons talk. One asks how things are progressing. The other, observing Suzun, replies that things seem fine, even if no one believes it, but he saw it with his own eyes. He's certain she looks exactly like the one he remembers. Back at Genta's home, he wakes up and steps out of his room. Suzun also wakes and asks if he's going to the temple. Genta tells her he's free until noon, which makes her happy. She hugs him, and Genta mentions that the bandages covering her eye are coming loose. Suzun adjusts them to hide her red eye. Shirayuki suddenly arrives, surprising Genta. He asks how she got there, and she says she ran away and invites him to spend the day with her. Genta declines, saying it's dangerous since she's a princess. Shirayuki explains she got permission from the chief. Suzun then suggests they all have breakfast together like they used to. The 3 of them sit down and share a meal. Suzuni commented that Genta should have brought better food for Cher. Genta warned her to be quiet or he'd hit her. Cher laughed and said they all knew he had never hit Suzuni. Genta insisted he was strict when necessary and could be harsh too. But Cher doubted that, and Suzuni agreed, saying he wasn't like that at all. Genta joked, "You both want trouble, ha," which made them all burst into laughter. Suzuni challenged him to go ahead and hit her. Genta raised his hand toward her, but couldn't bring himself to do it. He told her he'd let her go this time, which made them laugh again. Genta got ready to go out with Cher, and Suzuni was overjoyed. He asked why she was so happy. She replied it was because he was going out with the princess to have fun, and if he was happy, that made her happy too. As Genta walked with Cher, no one recognized her as the princess. People were surprised to see Genta with such a beautiful girl. They went to Chizu's mother to buy dango. She was surprised and asked Genta who the girl was. Genta replied she was just a friend. Cher asked for 10 servings of dango, but Genta said they'd only get 2 and some tea, which shocked her. Cher then asked if Chizu's mother didn't recognize her. Genta explained that she hadn't seen her in years and likely didn't remember her. Cher said she had expected that. Chizu's mother prepared the food and even added sweets, saying she remembered Genta always loving them as a kid. Surprised, Genta asked, you still remember that?" She replied, "Of course. You always came here asking for them when you were little." She apologized for calling him that, but Genta assured her it was fine. He tried the sweets and said they were delicious, which made Chizu's mother very happy. Afterward, Genta told Shir he was no longer her big brother, he was now the city's guard. Shir replied, "I know, nothing lasts forever." She added that it was one of her father's favorite sayings. Genta reflected on how his father always taught him important life lessons, and how he still felt guided by him every step of the way. He said he wanted to stay on that path. Shir said, "I hope we become like my mom and dad and protect the city the way they did." They then visited their favorite spot where they used to meet. Shir thanked Genta for spending the day with her. Genta told her he had a wonderful time, which made her happy. But she also admitted feeling guilty for focusing only on her problems and dragging him into them. Genta asked if she felt satisfied now. She said yes, and then revealed she had brought him there because she wanted to share something important. She told Genta she was going to marry Kayamasa. The village leader had informed her the day before. She explained she needed to bear a successor so she wouldn't repeat her mother's fate. Kayamasa, a guard born in the city, was expected to become the next chief, and their marriage would be good for everyone. Though she leaned toward accepting it, she confessed that, speaking as Shir, not as a princess, she loved Genta. She told him she had once thought about running away with him to start a new life, but figured he wouldn't agree. Genta confirmed he would have refused. Shir said it was because he didn't love her. Genta clarified that he had sworn to protect the city and the princess, not Shir. He had trained hard for that, and if he ran away with her, it would make all his training meaningless and be an insult to himself. Shir said they were very similar. When everything ends, people can only choose how to live, not who to live with. She chose to remain a princess, and if she abandoned that identity, she wouldn't be able to look him in the eye. If her role was wrong, so were her feelings for him. So she would continue to live as a princess, and asked him to stay loyal and love her until the end. Genta promised he would stay her guard and protect her to the very end. We then shift to Suzun, who was alone and feeling anxious. At the temple, Shir informed Genta that 2 demons had been spotted in the forest and ordered him to eliminate them. Kayamasa would protect her while he was gone. Genta replied, "All right, I'll take care of them as soon as possible." Shir wished him good luck. After leaving the temple, Genta was stopped by Kayamasa, who asked if he had heard the news about his marriage to the princess. Genta calmly replied that he had. Kayamasa questioned whether Genta was really not going to do anything, but Genta said that protecting the city and the princess's happiness was what mattered most to him. Kayamasa accused him of pretending not to love her and demanded, "What about your heart? Are you crazy, man?" Genta simply answered, "Of course I am," and walked away, leaving Kayamasa stunned. Meanwhile, Suzun was alone when a demon approached her. The scene shifted to Genta, who was deep in the forest searching for the demons when he was suddenly attacked. The demon, surprised that Genta dodged, asked how he saw through the ambush. Genta responded, "I know there are 2 of you. Where's the other one?" The demon said the other had an important task in the city. Genta struck first, but missed. The demon counterattacked, injuring Genta's face. Genta retaliated and managed to sever the demon's hand, though it struck again with the other, which Genta dodged. Holding its severed hand, the demon remarked that while demons live for centuries, humans surpass themselves by passing their dreams forward. It then asked Genta, "Do you know why you use that sword?" It claimed to have defied nature to gain its power. Genta responded that he would kill anyone who threatened those he loved. Back with Suzun, the other demon approached her, asking if she knew who she was. Suzun said the demon was the demon itself. It agreed but said they were alike. Suzun denied it, claiming she was human and trembling with fear. The demon said sisterly love was what made her feel human and admired how much her brother had fought for her. It asked if she thought her brother was great, and Suzun replied that he meant everything to her. The demon then said it saw a young girl in her heart and warned that someone wanted to harm her brother. It offered to help and claimed demons never lie. It reached out its hand, asking her to come with it. Suzun refused, saying it might endanger her brother. The demon then said, "Will you still say that after seeing this?" and showed her a glimpse of the future, Sheri marrying Kayamasa. The demon claimed to have foresight, allowing it to share brief visions of the future. Suzun called it outside, saying she didn't want to know the truth. She asked if Sheri really did that, and the demon confirmed it. Suzun accused it of lying. The demon offered to show her again, and claimed it was all for her brother. Hesitantly, Suzun reached for the demon's hand. Meanwhile, Genta continued fighting the other demon. He was pushed into the water and attacked from behind. Genta asked, "Why do you want to hurt humans?" The demon replied, "Because of what I am." Genta asked if that meant it naturally wanted to kill humans. The demon explained that it had a specific goal and accepted its nature. It couldn't rebel against what it was. Genta said, "Then I'll show you no mercy." The demon revealed it could absorb power from other demons, growing stronger and changing form. Genta attacked, but the demon cut off his arm and broke his sword. Still, Genta grabbed the broken piece and drove it into the demon's body, killing it. Before dying, the demon said it had fulfilled its goal and revealed the other demon had powers of perception. It warned that after 170 years, the strongest demon would rise to rule over all demon offspring in the city. This was the reason they had come. Genta, shocked, wondered if a demon was already living among them and thought of Suzun. The demon grabbed Genta's head and said, "You wield the sword to protect those you vowed to defend. But if you find they are not worth protecting, who will you kill then?" The scene shifts to Princess Shirayuki, where Kayamasa tries to get close to her, but she pushes him away, saying they need to first confirm whether Genta has defeated the demons. Kayamasa insists it's the right time to marry, warning that if they wait, they might have to wed in front of Genta. He steps back and leaves the decision to her. The princess begins to cry, arguing that she was wrong and must marry Kayamasa now for the city's sake. As she moves toward him, a demon enters, accompanied by Suzun, who witnesses the scene and asks the princess why she's doing this. Meanwhile, Genta regains consciousness and is shocked to find his severed arm still intact. Realizing something's wrong, he rushes toward the city, only to find it in flames. Back at the princess's location, Suzun confronts her. "I thought you loved Genta, but I guess you're ready to settle for any guy, right?" The princess denies it, and Suzun demands an explanation. Genta arrives home, but finds it empty. Grabbing his sword, he heads to the princess's house. There, Suzun continues, "Why did you do this? I worked hard to bring you two together because I wanted Genta to be happy, and this is how you repay me." The princess responds, "I know you did it for Genta, but to remain his little sister, you need to stay innocent in both body and mind." Suzun replies, "I used to believe in you. I was ready to endure everything for your sake." The princess says, "I'm sorry. I am the princess now, responsible for the entire city. That's the only way I can repay Genta's feelings." Suzun asks, "So you're abandoning your love for my brother for strangers?" She removes her blindfold and starts laughing, accusing the princess of making her look like a fool. "Shut your mouth and don't move," she warns. The demon beside Suzun tells her, "Now you've seen it." While Genta was fighting for her life in the forest, the princess embraced another man. "Isn't it painful to suffer without knowing the truth?" Then it adds, "Isn't it infuriating that your brother is getting hurt because of this deceitful princess?" Suzun mutters, "Wouldn't it be better if she were dead?" Suddenly, she transforms into a demon, shrouded in black smoke. "You must die now," she tells the princess. Kayamasa tries to stop her but is struck down by the demon, losing consciousness. The demon urges Suzun to resolve the matter herself. Suzun grabs the sword. At that moment, Genta arrives. Shirayuki rushes to embrace him, but her head is severed in his arms, leaving him in shock as memories of their past flood in. He sees Suzun stab Shirayuki and, in rage, swings his sword at her, though she dodges. "Why are you attacking me?" she asks. "Are you really Suzun?" Genta demands. She confirms she is. "Then why did you kill Shirayuki?" he asks. "I did it for you," she replies. "I wanted you to be happy. You should smile. How is that logical?" Genta asks. "I'll explain. The princess was lying. She was going to marry someone else. I didn't want you to be sad," Suzun says. When Genta tells her to be quiet, she snaps. "Don't tell me you still love her. She's a liar." She explains that now that Shirayuki is gone, Genta won't feel pressured anymore and should go home because she's tired. "You killed Shirayuki, burned the city, betrayed the people who raised us, and now you expect me to believe you're tired," Genta retorts. Suzun shrugs. "Is that a problem?" "I now understand. The Suzun I once knew is gone." Genta attacks her again, but misses. She's shocked by his attempt to kill her. Then, Genta transforms into a demon, gaining the powers of the one who had previously injured him. Seeing his transformation, Suzun tries to defend herself, saying she did it all for him. Genta cuts her off, telling her to be silent. "So you're abandoning me like everyone else," she says. "I thought you were different. I thought you'd always be there." Then she says she doesn't need him, that he meant everything but didn't value her. "Fine, I'll go live in hell." She lunges at him, moving rapidly, then suddenly stops and says, "You must die." She thrusts her hands into his chest, but can't pull them out. Genta unleashes a powerful blow, sending her flying. She rises again and Genta says that strike wasn't enough. He prepares another attack, but this time it hits the other demon. The clairvoyant demon tells Suzun to go far away. Then Suzun left and Genta tried to follow her, but he couldn't pull his hands out of the she-demon's body. He called out to Suzun, but she told him she didn't want to talk because she was angry, and that she would tear everything in this world to pieces. She said she would visit them again, and that would be her final visit. The she-demon laughed, saying she had achieved her goal. Genta finally pulled his hands free and told her that they were only achieving their goals by shedding blood. The she-demon replied, "Of course, that's what we want." She claimed to have seen the future where demons couldn't keep up with how fast time changes. Darkness would drown the light made by humans who stole from their homes. In the end, demons would no longer be myths like in the past, and now she could die happy knowing she secured a future for her sisters. Then the sky rained, helping extinguish the fires. Afterward, Genta picked up Shirayuki and lamented that despite all his training, he hadn't thought of protecting her. Angrily, he went home, packed his belongings, and decided to leave. He went to the captain of the guards, who asked where he was going. Genta said he would leave the city to retrain and grow stronger to face the great demon when it attacked. The captain asked if he meant Suzun and if he really thought he could kill her. Genta admitted he once loved Shirayuki and could only hate Suzun now. He said he must end things one way or another, and the darkness inside him urged him to kill her, but he needed a solution. The captain replied, "Now that you've become a demon, I thought killing was all you cared about, but there's still dignity in you." He handed Genta a sword. Genta drew it, and the captain said, "This makes you a Rei. You must follow the rules and traditions." He added Kaji to his name, making him Genta Kaji. Genta said he shouldn't carry the sword, but the captain responded, "No one from the Atsukuman family is left. Leaving this sword to rot in darkness is pointless. It belongs in your hands. I believe the princess would find peace in death if this sword were with you." He then apologized to Genta, knowing about his love for the princess. He admitted that he once told her to marry Kayamasa for the city's sake, not realizing Kayamasa had feelings for her. The captain only wanted his son's happiness, but the tragedy weighed heavily on him. Genta then left, and Shiozi's mother came to him in tears. "Are you really leaving?" she asked, saying she'd always remember him. The scene then shifts to the year 1850 in the city of Soea. A man named Zenji, deputy to the village chief, met the chief and Genta. Upon seeing Genta, Zenji asked, "Is this the man?" The chief replied, "Of course. Now go with him and tell him everything." The chief left, and Zenji asked Genta if he had been told the full story. Genta replied, "The chief told me he has a daughter and that a demon wants to kidnap her." Zenji said that wasn't all. The chief's daughter, Natsu, was 13 and spoiled. The night before, she had seen a demon outside her window trying to kidnap her and heard it say, "Return my daughter to me." Genta was shocked. Zenji explained that the demon had a daughter who looked like Natsu, which was why it tried to take her. Natsu then arrived and scolded Zenji, threatening to tell her father if he kept slacking off. When she met Genta, she asked, "Are you the one who came to protect me? If so, please leave. You look too young." Zenji tried to calm her, but Natsu said Genta must have come for money and would leave later. She claimed this was just an opportunity for him. Zenji reminded her that her father had chosen Genta, believing in his skills, but Natsu told him to shut up. She said she hated having a samurai without a lord as a personal guard, so they wouldn't pay him, and he should go back where he came from. Then she stormed off. Zenji turned to Genta and said, "What an embarrassing family. They're not social at all." He apologized. Later that night, Zenji entered Natsu's room. She was surprised and asked why he came. Zenji replied, "Since you dismissed the new guard, I'll be protecting you instead, just in case something bad happens." Natsu, annoyed, asked if he thought she was lying. She said even her father didn't believe her, which is why he hired a suspicious samurai. Zenji said, "I think you're wrong about your father. I believe the chief genuinely cares about you. You've always been his top concern." Natsu replied, "But you know I'm not really his daughter." Suddenly, Natsu heard the demon's voice and began to panic, pleading with Zenji for help. Concerned, Zenji asked, "What's wrong?" At that moment, the demon appeared in front of Zenji, moving closer while repeatedly saying, "Return my daughter to me." As the demon reached for Zenji, Genta struck, cutting off its hands. Genta asked for the demon's name, but it kept repeating the same phrase. Genta landed another blow, eliminating the demon completely. He turned to Natsu and asked, "What payment do I deserve for my expertise?" Natsu asked, "Did the demon die?" Genta replied, "When a demon dies, white smoke appears. That's how I know it's dead. And yes, I've seen this before, but I'll return again." The next morning, Genta and Zenji went to Zenji's house. Zenji thanked Genta for saving him and said, "You delayed the demon, but it will return. Please stay with us again tonight." Genta agreed and asked Zenji to tell him more about Natsu, especially because of what the demon had said. Zenji explained, "Natsu isn't the chief's biological daughter. She was born to a man and woman from the chief's family, but both died. Still, don't worry, she isn't from a demon lineage. If she were, the chief would never have adopted her. His wife was killed by a demon, and his son fled and never returned. The chief blames demons for everything that destroyed his family. So why would he take in Natsu if she were related to demons?" Later that night, Natsu and the chief were having dinner. The chief asked, "Is everything all right with the new guards?" Natsu replied, "Everything's fine. Thank you for caring about me." The chief said, "What kind of father wouldn't care about his daughter?" Natsu then asked, "Why did you choose that guard?" The chief explained, "Lately, there have been demons sighted near Ito. At the same time, there were reports of a man who confronts and kills demons with a single blow." Natsu asked, "Are you talking about that samurai?" The chief confirmed, "Yes. He kills any demon if he's paid. I chose him because I trust him. I thought it was best to make him your personal guard." Natsu asked, "So you believed me about the demon?" The next morning, outside her room, Natsu reflected that scary stories come in many forms, from direct tales to folk legends, but they never truly disappear. She remembered a servant once talking about the chief's son being kidnapped and his wife dying because of demons. He had adopted a girl while waiting for his son's return. This made her uneasy. Back in her room, feeling afraid, Natsu opened the door and saw Zenji. "Why are you here?" she asked. Zenji replied, "I'm waiting for my chance to redeem myself for yesterday." Natsu coldly said, "I don't care about that." Zenji asked, "Is there no place in your heart to forgive me?" Natsu replied, "Maybe, but you'll have to take me somewhere nice first." Zenji smiled and said, "All right, I'll take you somewhere wonderful." Natsu then asked Genta his name. She told him, "My dad trusts you a lot. I think I'll trust you too." Genta responded, "You love your father a lot, Natsu." She smiled and said, "Of course. He adopted me and gave me a home. Why wouldn't I love him?" Genta replied, "A small, happy family," and added, "I really think the chief cares about you." That brought a smile to Natsu's face. When Genta mentioned the chief's lost daughter, Natsu cut him off, saying she knew nothing about her and got angry. Genta said, "I think I touched a sensitive chord." Natsu asked, "Is it possible for a demon and a human to have a child together?" Genta replied, "Of course." Natsu worried, "Then I could belong to that demon who appeared." Genta reassured her, "That demon is not your father." Natsu asked, "How do you know that?" Genta said, "I know who that demon is. We have a long history. I'm sure he never had a child like you." Natsu asked, "Is that really true?" Genta answered, "I'm not lying to you." Genta then asked Zenji, "Do you know how demons are born?" Zenji said, "Isn't it obvious? Like humans, from their parents. Or am I wrong?" Genta explained, "There are many ways demons are born. The usual way is through two demons having a child, but some are born when demons force themselves on humans for their own pleasure. Some demons are born from nothing, manifesting from pure emotions, especially dark ones like bitterness, anger, jealousy, sorrow, and obsession. These feelings slowly seep into a person, settle deep within, and eventually congeal into a physical form." Genta explained that such demons are essentially emotions wrapped in flesh. While he spoke, Natsu grew frightened. Suddenly, the demon appeared again. Genta approached it and asked, "What is your name?" Then he attacked the demon, striking it multiple times and knocking it to the ground. He turned to Natsu and asked, "Do you want me to kill it?" He explained that her emotions had summoned the demon. It was a result of her desires. The chaos it brought made her father pay more attention to her. Genta said, "You wanted to be treated like a real daughter, and then this demon appeared, saying the things no one dared to. Isn't that what you truly wished for?" Natsu, pained, said, "Please stop," trying to quiet the voice in her head. Genta remarked, "This demon will return even after I kill it. It won't disappear for good until you control your emotions." Natsu asked, "But how? I don't know how." Genta replied that it was simple. She just had to ask him to kill it. Natsu reflected on how she'd ignored things she didn't want to see and feared showing weakness. Deep down, she just wanted to be loved. She imagined her father appreciating her if a demon appeared, calling her a queen. Those ugly emotions had now taken form. The demon was her, and the one who needed to be destroyed was also her. Zenji comforted her, saying, "The only thing that needs to be killed is the demon, not you, my lady. Even if it was created from your emotions, that doesn't matter." He held her hand and told her to trust him. He assured her that both she and the boss cared deeply for each other, but neither knew how to express it. What they needed was honest communication, like a real family. Natsu asked Genta to kill the demon. Genta faced the creature and unleashed a powerful attack that sliced it in half. Zenji, seeing white smoke, asked, "Is it dead this time?" Genta confirmed, "Of course it's dead." Afterward, Natsu fell asleep and Genta waited outside her room. But the demon reappeared, muttering that he had expected this outcome. He said this demon wasn't born solely from Natsu's emotions. Other princes in the country also held the potential to become demons. He recalled Zenji's mention of the boss's wife, who had been killed by a demon. That's why the creature had said, "Return my wife and daughter." Genta realized the demon referred to the child born to the boss's wife, Shizune. He hadn't expected this reunion and told the demon he remembered him clearly. Again, he asked the demon's name, but it only repeated, "Return my daughter to me." Genta responded, "People should live in the present, not be trapped in the past." With that, he struck the demon again, releasing white smoke. Later, Genta visited Zenji's house. Zenji thanked him, and Natsu, though still adjusting, expressed her gratitude. Genta said, "Don't thank me. This wasn't a job, it was paying off a debt." He told her that age doesn't make someone an adult, but time gives people perspective. He recalled how, in his youth, his worldview was narrow. He understood that causing harm was wrong, but he hadn't seen what was hidden beneath people's actions. At the time, he could only run away. Now, he wanted to atone. Natsu admitted she didn't fully understand him. Genta told her to show her father the same kindness he showed her. "That's all it takes," he said. Natsu replied she didn't need him to tell her that. Genta then said his goodbyes and left. Afterward, the boss joined Zenji and Natsu. "Did Genta leave?" he asked. Zenji replied, "Of course he did. But, boss, you should have come to say goodbye." The boss said it wasn't necessary. He had known from the start that Genta would complete the mission. When Zenji asked why he trusted him so much, the boss replied, "Don't ask stupid questions. Any respectable father trusts his son." He then told Zenji to get to work or his salary would be deducted. Zenji immediately agreed, not wanting that to happen. Natsu asked her father, "Is there anything I can help you with?" Surprised, the boss asked, "What's with this change?" Natsu replied, "They asked me to return the kindness you've shown me." The boss smiled and said, "That's a great kindness from you, but don't worry anymore. The best way for children to repay their parents is to live long. That's all I want. I just want you to be happy." After that, he left, and Natsu followed him to help. Genta went to a restaurant where the manager prepared the food and his daughter, Offie, worked with him. He asked Offie to bring the food to Genta, and she did. Afterward, Offie's father approached Genta and told him there was a killer lurking in the streets. He was very anxious about his daughter's safety and hoped the emperor would take action. Genta advised him to be careful about what he said regarding the emperor. Offie's father agreed, saying he didn't want to lose the restaurant, especially since he had acquired it just 10 days prior at a low price from the previous owner. Genta wasn't surprised. Offie's father complimented Genta's refined taste, noting his place resembled a ghost town and that Genta had been coming there for 5 consecutive days. Offie told her father he would lose their only customer, but her father reassured her they were just talking. He then asked Genta his opinion on the food. Genta replied it wasn't bad, just small in quantity. Offie's father praised his honesty, stating the best chef in the city made it. Genta inquired why they started working. Offie's father said everyone had their reasons, remarking that the past hadn't been kind to Genta, who confirmed this. Offie's father believed Genta had enough money, but Genta responded he was working to earn it. Offie's father asked about Genta's profession, and Genta replied he was a demon hunter, which made Offie's father laugh. He asked if Genta was heading to Edo now, and Genta confirmed. As Genta left, Offie's father reminded him about the killer, noting rumors that the killer never used a sword, yet all victims were mutilated, and the number of corpses was suspicious. He informed Genta that many people had gone missing recently concerning the discovered bodies, suggesting they might have been attacked or taken away, and everyone believed demons were responsible. Genta asked Offie's father where this killer was, and he replied the killer was in the Edo area. Offie approached Genta and warned him that stealthy killers and demons were very scary, urging him to be cautious in the dangerous streets. Genta replied he was old enough for lectures about going out at night. Offie retorted that his tough demeanor just proved he was still a child. Afterward, Genta moved to the Shirishi Bridge, hoping the killer would appear that day, but realizing wishes don't always come true. As he began to move, he heard a scream and rushed to find a group of dead men. He noted they were men, and he had heard a woman's voice afterward. Suddenly, the killer attacked him, injuring him. The killer tried to strike again, but Genta parried. However, the killer managed to stab Genta in the back and ran away. Genta, intrigued by the killer's power, hoped for more attacks, saying he was ready and harnessing the demon's power within him. The killer launched another attack, but Genta broke his sword and aimed to strike, though it missed. Genta encouraged the killer to try again. The killer told him to wait and revealed himself, saying, "I'm called Musuki." Genta said he would remember the name and that Musuki should prepare for death. Musuki replied he had no intention of fighting Genta, which Genta found amusing, as he had gotten the opposite impression. Musuki explained he had thought Genta was the killer, as rumors spread that whoever did it was a demon, so he had followed a demonic scent until encountering Genta. When Genta called him a killer, Musuki realized Genta wasn't the one. Genta asked why a demon would hunt serial killers. Musuki suggested they talk elsewhere before someone saw them. They moved to Musuki's house, and Musuki offered Genta a drink, assuring him it wasn't poisoned. Genta quipped that even if it were, it wouldn't kill him. Musuki explained that demons, when they mature, choose to appear as humans and live among society, adding that demons don't lie but they disappear. Musuki claimed he lived in the simple house. Genta told him he was a demon with a unique power. Musuki explained his power was invisibility, and that he was a high-ranking demon who had lived for 100 years. Genta commented that he seemed weak, but Musuki retorted that their rank was based on awakened power, not physical strength, and some high-ranking demons could be slow and weak, which he believed he was. Genta asked if Musuki wasn't a serial killer, and Musuki confirmed he wasn't, with Genta affirming he wasn't either, adding that he would believe Musuki. Musuki expressed his appreciation and thanked him. Genta asked why Musuki had attacked him without a word when he thought Genta was the serial killer. Musuki asked if Genta had heard of disappearance cases. Genta acknowledged knowing the number of victims didn't match the missing people, and mentioned hearing a woman scream, but seeing no body. Musuki confirmed this, saying the killer only targeted men and kidnapped women. Genta asked how Musuki could be sure. Musuki revealed that the killer had kidnapped his wife Hatsuo about a month ago. She had been with him despite him being a demon, yet she disappeared without a trace. 10 days later, he found her body by the river. The officer he spoke to mentioned she had been horrifically raped. Hatsuo was beloved, and he knew she didn't deserve such a death. He told Genta he lived as a human not for society, but for his wife, harboring great hatred for the monster who did this and took her life. He wanted revenge, which was why he asked Genta to stay away. Genta replied he couldn't because killing demons was his job. Musuki then suggested they collaborate, gathering information independently, but asked Genta to let him be the one to end the killer. Genta asked if Musuki sought revenge, and Musuki confirmed without a doubt. Genta said that regardless of whether the killer was demon or human, they needed to bear the burden of taking a life, and he asked if Musuki was ready for that. Musuki replied that demons don't lie, not even to themselves. Genta said, "Okay, let's work together." Afterward, Genta and Musuki began gathering information from the villagers. Later, they met again, and Musuki remarked it had been another exhausting and fruitless day, noting they couldn't rest and had to keep working, to which Genta agreed. Next, they went to Musuki's house and started drinking. Genta asked why Musuki was chasing his sister. Musuki explained it was for money, as many people hated demons and wanted them destroyed. He pledged to take a lot of money from these people in exchange for killing demons, asking if Genta had a problem with that. Musuki noted that Genta didn't seem like someone who killed without reason, and besides, couldn't complain while enjoying drinks bought with that money. Genta chuckled, mentioning another reason was to gain strength, stating his life mission was to stop a particular demon. Musuki noted it was to stop, not kill. Genta explained he had been human, but witnessing a demon kill the woman he loved turned him into someone like that demon, so killing demons that threatened humans felt natural. Musuki pointed out that by doing so, he was also allowing that demon to live. Genta recalled Suzun becoming a demon and told Musuki he hadn't decided what to do when he faced her again, mentioning needing much strength and calling himself a coward. Musuki asked what Genta would do after avenging his wife. Musuki replied he would do nothing. The only reason he lived as a human was his dislike of violence and not wanting to be hunted by humans or fight his kind. He wanted a peaceful life and wished his wife were with him. When he achieved peace, he would live alone and tend to her grave. Genta reminded Musuki that he had said that Musuki wasn't the type to do something without good reason, but Musuki replied that Genta shouldn't think of him that way, as he was consumed by blind hatred for the damned monster. They moved to Alfie's restaurant, and Genta went there to eat. He asked Alfie, "Did you find the killer?" She replied, "You never mentioned you were looking for him." Alfie said, "But you told me your job is to kill demons, so it's reasonable to assume that tracking down rumors like the killer is part of what you do, right?" Genta replied, "Things haven't been going well." Alfie's dad said, "This is tough on you, my friend, isn't it? Making a living truly is a big pain." Genta said to Alfie, "There must be lines of people because of a great waitress like you, and I think everyone in Ato is busy." Alfie's dad asked him, "Do you think Alfie has charm?" He said, "About 8 out of 10. Alfie's dad said, "That's what I wanted to hear," and told him he had great taste. Alfie asked her dad, "What's this big story?" He said, "It's good that you haven't had any serious relationships in your life." Alfie replied, "That's clear and true, but you shouldn't put Genta in an awkward position." Her dad said, "I just wanted to help you." Alfie assured him, "Don't worry, I plan to stop living with you someday, but until that time comes, I want to act like your devoted daughter." Her dad said, "Okay," and Alfie apologized to Genta, who told her no need to apologize, and mentioned that her dad is a really good man. She replied, "Of course, he's a source of pride for me." Genta asked, "Wasn't your dad like that?" She said, "Sorry, I shouldn't have asked." Genta told her, "I had a younger sister named Suzun, and my dad treated her very badly, hitting her and saying she didn't belong to our family. So I took Suzun, and we ran away from home a long time ago." Alfie asked him, "Do you hate your dad?" He replied, "No, I understand why he did that, except things didn't go as he wished." They then moved to the bridge where Musuki and Genta were. Musuki asked Genta, "Did you find out anything?" Genta replied, "No." Musuki said, "Another pointless search." After that, Genta started to move, and Musuki followed, saying, "There haven't been any kidnappings or attacks lately, so we haven't been able to gather any information." Then, Musuki asked Genta to stop and said, "Look over there." Genta said, "That's Alfie." Musuki asked him, "Do you know her?" Genta replied, "She's the daughter of the restaurant owner I go to." Musuki said, "Then it's not good for her to be out alone." Genta told Musuki, "I'm going to her," and approached her. Alfie said to Genta, "The moon is beautiful tonight," and asked him, "Are you alone?" He said, "No, I'm with a friend." He looked behind him, but didn't see Musuki, who had disappeared. Musuki told him, "I didn't show myself to her," and advised him not to hesitate to take her home, since they didn't want her to become the killer's victim. Alfie asked Genta, "Is something going on?" He replied, "No," and asked her why she was there. She said, "I was enjoying the flowers, explaining their beauty, and that they bloom in winter and are one of the best types." Genta said to her, "They're indeed nice. I've never seen anything like them before." She replied, "They're rare, that's why I hold on to them and admire them, and they look amazing in spring when they bloom." Genta asked Alfie if she could go home so her dad wouldn't worry. She replied, "Okay, and thank." She nodded as Afu and Genta walked to her place. Afu mentioned that he really needed to relax more often. Genta raised an eyebrow, wondering if he really seemed that tense, and she quickly responded that yes, he definitely had that brooding, overthinking energy, constantly pushing himself too hard. He couldn't deny it and admitted she was probably right. His entire life had been focused on one thing, the purpose he was born to fulfill. She didn't know what that purpose was, but she told him he should ease up sometimes. Life couldn't be all about chasing one goal. To him, though, that was all he had, and he told her he couldn't follow her advice, even if he wanted to. A moment later, she noticed some flowers along the path and stopped to admire them, pointing out that they were winter daphnes. She explained that these flowers begin to bloom in the fall and survive through winter, finally blossoming in spring, signaling that the season has officially arrived. Then, she pointed to another patch of flowers, and when she tried to identify them, he told her they were chickweed. He mentioned that boiling chickweed stalks made a great remedy for stomach aches, something he'd often used back in his village, especially for a childhood friend of his who had a sweet tooth and always ended up with stomach pains. Afu laughed, saying that girl must have been fun, and he admitted that he had always followed her lead. Hearing that, Afu began to suspect there was more to his story than he let on. He liked soba, admired flowers, and cherished warm memories from his past. He was more than just someone fixated on a purpose. She gently told him that being so focused on one goal was preventing him from seeing the rest of the world. She urged him to slow down sometimes and live in the moment, assuring him that if he did, he would notice things he hadn't before. Not long after, they reached her house and noticed that the lights were still on, which meant her dad had stayed up waiting for her. She thanked him for walking her home, and as she turned to leave, he asked if she'd teach him more about flowers sometime, preferably when the sun was still out. She smiled and agreed before heading inside. At that moment, Musuki deactivated his invisibility and commented that Afu seemed like a good woman. Genta nearly jumped in surprise, realizing Musuki had been tailing him the whole time. Musuki dodged the question and said he was going to continue searching for the slasher. Once again, the night ended with Genta waiting alone on the bridge for the killer to appear. A drunk man stumbled by Genta, and at that moment, the slasher appeared and attacked him. The woman behind them dropped to her knees in shock, and Genta finally got a good look at the slasher. It lunged at him, but he blocked the strike, and the girl started to panic. Genta warned her to stay still if she wanted to survive, then moved the fight away from her to keep her safe. The slasher, seeing an opportunity, tried to circle back and attack the girl, but before it could get close, Musuki jumped in and pulled her to safety, while Genta launched a counterattack. Realizing it was outmatched, the slasher decided to flee, shooting into the air to escape. After it was gone, Genta apologized to Musuki for letting the slasher get away, but Musuki shrugged it off, saying it had been tougher than he expected. Still, he planned to track it down and find where it was hiding. Genta told him to be careful and keep his distance. Musuki nodded, assuring him he didn't plan on dying anytime soon, and set off after it. Once he was gone, the girl behind Genta asked for help getting up. He assisted her, and noticing her look, she commented that his grumpy attitude really reminded her of something. She asked if he remembered her, and when he looked closely, he recognized her as Natsu. She was glad he remembered her, and he remarked on how much she had changed. It had been 3 years after all, and she was surprised he hadn't aged. He joked that he was immune to aging, and she laughed it off, thinking he was kidding. Curious, he asked what she was doing out so late. She explained she had just finished delivering something to a regular customer. He pointed out how much she had changed, noting that her smile looked more natural now. She told him that showed she wasn't a child anymore. At that moment, Zenji appeared and teased her, saying she wasn't quite an adult yet, which caught her off guard. He then noticed Genta and immediately assumed they were romantically involved. Genta quickly corrected him, explaining that Natsu had just been attacked by a serial killer. Zenji then saw the body nearby and panicked, suggesting they call the authorities. Natsu explained that wouldn't help since it was the work of a demon. Genta confirmed this, saying it was the same demon he had been chasing for a while, and Natsu had just gotten caught in the crossfire. Zenji joked that Genta always seemed to be surrounded by demons. Natsu then asked how he made a living these days, and Genta told her he was still a demon-slaying ronin. He added that if she wanted to see him again, she could find him at a soba shop in Fukugawa. He even offered her a discount if she stopped by. Since her escort had already arrived, he figured it was time to leave. Before parting, she thanked him for saving her life. As Genta was walking off, Zenji called out one last piece of advice. If Genta was still looking for demons, he might want to check out Temple. The place had been abandoned ever since the head priest passed away, and locals were saying they'd been hearing a woman's voice echoing from inside. Rumors were spreading that something unnatural might be living there. Meanwhile, Musuki was still tracking the demon through the streets, but he ended up losing it. Just then, a woman's scream cut through the night, and he rushed toward the sound, only to spot the demon carrying someone. It instantly reminded him of his wife Hatsu, and the rage he'd been holding in finally exploded. He chased the demon all the way to Temple, slipped inside using his invisibility, and what he saw there left him shaking with fury. The demon was devouring the woman it had just kidnapped, swallowing her whole, bones and all. At that moment, Musuki couldn't hold himself back anymore. He charged in, dead set on ending the thing, convinced it was the same one that murdered Hatsu. But the demon sensed him coming and tore into him with its claws, shredding his gut open. Then it calmly went back to its meal, chewing through the woman's head while Musuki lay on the ground, bleeding out, wondering if this was how he was going to die, pathetic and empty, without even getting his revenge. Eventually, the demon left, and not long after, Genta showed up. He spotted Musuki barely hanging on and knelt beside him. Musuki managed a weak grin, joking that he had really made a mess of himself. Genta asked if he found the demon, and Musuki confirmed it, saying it was here eating women alive. It was the same monster that took his wife. Genta was stunned to hear that, especially about the eating part. Then, Musuki made one final request. He asked Genta to avenge him and handed him a sword forged in Kadano, saying it would slice through any demon like butter. Genta promised to do just that, but in return, he asked Musuki to lend him his power. Musuki was relieved and grateful, even that he could still help Genta one last time, even with his dying breath. Genta then absorbed Musuki's power, and as he did, he caught a glimpse into his soul. He saw that Musuki had spent most of his life running from demons, constantly looking over his shoulder. But when he finally settled in this town, he began living like a regular human, and for the first time, he found peace. Eventually, he met the woman who would become his wife, and over time, they fell in love. When things got serious, he came clean about his true nature, revealing that he was actually a demon. But instead of running away, she looked him dead in the eye and told him she loved him. So, human or demon, it didn't matter to her. After seeing that, Genta finished absorbing Musuki's power and quietly promised to carry out his final wish. Some time passed, and we see the demon dragging another woman into its hideout and starting to feed. As it ate, it started recalling the day it first became self-aware. It had already been born into this grotesque demonic body from the beginning. It had this instinct, this need to kill men. That urge was the only thing it understood at the time. Since then, it had been searching for something. It didn't know who or what it was looking for, just that it needed to go home, but it didn't even know where home was. The only thing it was sure of was that it couldn't return in its current state, so it kept abducting women it believed carried something its body lacked. That's why it devoured them, so it could consume what was missing and finally find a way back. Back in the present, the demon continued its feeding frenzy when suddenly Genta showed up. He was surprised the creature would come back here after its lair was exposed. Without hesitation, he attacked, using invisibility and slicing off one of its hands in a clean strike. The demon lashed back, but Genta dodged every blow, keeping just out of reach. It bolted across the temple, trying to go on the offensive. Genta admitted that its power was kind of a pain to deal with, but this time, he was armed with Musuki's power. He dodged every strike again, then dropped his invisibility and let the demonic aura in his arm flare. He then told the demon that he was going to end it by using the gift Musuki had entrusted him with. Genta then charged in, vanishing at the last second, and in one clean motion, took its head off. The demon was still clinging to life, gasping in pain, and Genta walked up to it, demanding an answer. He asked why it left Musuki's wife's body untouched when it devoured every other woman it captured. If it really was the killer Musuki was hunting, then why didn't it consume her completely? The demon started crying, saying it needed a body, it couldn't go home without one. Genta didn't understand what it was talking about, but he remembered the question. The demon asked him earlier if he feasted too. He told it yes, he does, except he feeds on demons the same way it fed on women. Now he was going to consume its power. As he absorbed the demon's strength, he realized its ability was called Dart, a temporary speed burst that lets the user kick through the air and accelerate instantly. It was a solid ability, one that would surely come in handy. But as he consumed the demon, he ended up seeing into its soul. He saw Hatsu, Musuki's wife, being violated by two men while they were laughing, before tossing her into the river like trash. As she sank, her final thoughts were about going home, but she refused to return in a body that had been defiled. Instead, she searched for another vessel, one that could help her make it back to her husband. That's when it became clear to Genta that this demon was Hatsu, and she just wanted to go home. But that was never going to happen. The demon then faded away, and Genta quietly left the temple. A few days later, back at the soba shop, the owner mentioned that Genta hadn't shown up in a while. He figured it was because he joked about letting him marry his daughter. She reminded her father that he never actually said that, and she also ran into Genta the other day in Sakusa, and they chatted for a bit. He told her he'd stop by once he was finished with his current job. The owner thought the job might already be done because word around town was that the slasher disappeared and the killings had stopped. But she told him Genta mentioned he still had demons to hunt somewhere else. Those same 2 men who violated Hatsu were wandering the streets late at night. They started talking about finding their next victim, laughing about how the last one cried out for her husband as they dragged her under. But then they saw Genta. He stepped forward without a word and cut both of them down in a single strike. Looking down at their bodies, he said nothing. He just hoped that Mosu could finally rest in peace, now that Hatsu had been avenged. Then he walked away. There was a small girl singing and playing with a ball among the water lily flowers. She stopped singing and said there was no continuation. The warrior Mura was walking at night, and there was a villager walking in front of him with a child. Mura imagined the big man was someone he knew and almost called out to him, but he ended up bumping into Natsu. When Natsu looked at him, she noticed he had 2 weapons and immediately apologized. Mura said, "No, I'm sorry for not looking ahead." After that, Afu's father told her that this gentleman was Mura, a samurai, and was known to be very nice. Next, we moved to Afu's father's restaurant, where Afu served him food, but he didn't eat. Afu's father asked him why he wasn't eating. Mura replied, "Of course, it's because I have a small problem." He then asked if it was possible for him to listen for a moment. Afu's father said, "Of course." Mura said, "I have an older brother." Afu's father told him, "Stop pretending to be foolish. There is no older brother in the Mura family." Mura replied, "But I do have an older brother." He asked, "Afu, do you know my big brother Sadana?" Ofu replied that she was sorry she didn't know him. Mura said, "Of course, no one knows my older brother, not even my parents." Afu's father told Mura not to think too much about it and urged him to eat since the food was getting cold. Afu asked Mura if she could introduce him to a nice person. Mura said he was okay with it if the person was nice. Afu mentioned that this person might be able to help him. Afu's father said there was a customer who loved to poke his head into strange stories like this. Mura asked, "Is this person a swordsman who fights evil? Does he make money this way?" They laughed at Mira's words. Afu's father said, "No, this man is a mercenary, and clearly he's someone who can help you. Of course, he will take your money, but he's a great duelist and can take out evildoers with one strike from his sword." Afu told Mira that dealing with him might be tough, but he's a good and somewhat nice person. Afu's father added that he eats Afu's soba here every day, and here he comes just as we're talking about him. Genta entered the restaurant and placed his order, catching Mira's attention as well. Afu's father asked Genta if he liked the Afu soba this time too. Genta replied, "No, it was as usual." Afu's father told him he should tell him at least once that it was good. Genta replied that it was available in all the restaurants, but he liked to taste it here. After that, Afu poured tea for him. Genta told her she got used to that. Afu said she is improving every day compared to the previous one. She asked him what he thought, and Genta took a sip and told her that autumn is the season for trees and allows the beautiful scent to flow and the beautiful flowers to bloom. Afu agreed that was true. Genta said it's interesting to focus on this matter and told her he's attracted to the flowers found in nature, like along the road. Ofu replied that anyway, the season's flowers have finished, and next time, she would tell him a story about the flowers. After that, Mura approached Genta and apologized for interrupting. He introduced himself to Genta and asked if it was true that he heard he was obsessed with weird stories and rumors about the evildoers. Genta replied that he was good at defeating evildoers. Mura asked him if he could explain something to him if he asked. Genta said it was a bit different, and all he could do was defeat evildoers. If it wasn't evil, that wasn't his specialty. He apologized to him. Mura said he understood, left the money for the food, and went. Afu's father asked Genta if he could help Mura, telling him he was in big trouble because of his big brother leaving. Afu added that she was also asking this of him because Mura was very troubled because he lost someone important to him, and they begged him. Genta said, okay, he would return the favor for what they had done for him, which made them feel happy. Genta told them that the food had improved a lot and that he had put a lot of effort into it. Afu's father replied that it was the result of practice. We shift to Natsu after she went to Genta and joined him, asking for mochi and some tea. Sitting next to him, she asked Genta if he liked mochi. He said of course. Afterward, the waitress served food to Natsu, and she said it was delicious when eaten hot. Genta asked Natsu why things didn't end with Zenji. Natsu felt choked because food had stopped in her mouth and immediately drank tea. She asked him what he was saying. Genta said that she was now at an appropriate age. Natsu replied that she couldn't be with Zenji. Genta told her she would feel comfortable and secure with him. Natsu stated stated that Zenji was like a big brother to her. Additionally, her father mentioned marriage in front of her, but he told her that she could do anything she wanted when she got married. She thought about the store and that it would be better to have a big shelf filled with flowers. She asked Genta if he didn't think that way, to which he replied that as a mercenary, he didn't have a stable job. She acknowledged it but reminded him that he needed to take things seriously soon. She then asked his age, and Genta answered he was 31. Surprised, she said he was older than Zenji and wondered if he had any secrets. Genta said he would leave that up to her. Natsu asked if Genta was leaving, and he confirmed he had work. When Natsu asked if it was another evildoer, Genta gestured yes. Natsu asked why he killed such people, suggesting if he had a mission, he could work on other tasks too. Genta admitted he didn't know why he did it. Natsu asked him to explain further, and Genta said she had dared to suggest it. Maybe that was the only thing he had left. Natsu felt relieved, commenting that he was usually calm, but now she understood he had a softer side, sometimes fragile but still human. Genta told her to forget it. Natsu responded, "That's enough. You're not a stranger anymore. We've been together for a while now, and if you keep this up, you'll stay a stranger forever." She had to return to the store but stopped before leaving, telling him not to worry about wrinkles showing up on his face. Next, we moved to Mira's home. As he was about to leave, his mother called out to him, asking if he was leaving again today. She said she was sure he had no siblings. Mira replied, "I'm sure I have a brother." His mother urged him to search for his brother and stop meddling in family history. Those who understand virtue should forget this and seek help from a stranger. And those who have sworn allegiance should never forget they're a samurai. Mira questioned her, asking, "What's this talk?" He added that, if he found his brother, he would stop doing what he was doing. With that, he left the house. He ran for a while, then stopped, feeling tired. As he rested, he imagined his brother's voice. His brother said, "You have no friends because you have a house, and you have a house because you have friends." He reflected on it, but didn't want to give up his own will. Returning to the present, he asked, "Where are you, brother?" Suddenly, Genta appeared and said, "You're looking for me." He introduced himself as Genta, a mercenary, explaining that he had come to help but couldn't promise a solution. Mira said he didn't mind, as believing in him felt like salvation. Genta asked about what happened before his brother's disappearance. Mira agreed to take him to the castle. Genta followed, and on the way, Mira remarked that Genta didn't seem burdened by much, asking if he was from a samurai family. Genta replied, "No, I grew up in a hut in the mountains in a place called Tatarba." Despite that, he had ended up in this position, benefiting from his role as a warrior. Mira said he understood, and then asked if Ko knew where he was from. Genta confirmed. Mira added, "Because of Tatarba, when I saw your sword's iron scabbard, I thought it was well crafted. I have a hobby of studying swords, and I've heard that Kaiden swords are known for their simple iron scabbards. But your scabbard is finely made." Genta explained that it was a top-quality sword originally kept in the castle, which is why he was allowed to use it. Mira asked for its name, and Genta told him it was Yara. Mira noted that people from Kadano also called it Ono Musuku, or Honori, and asked if it was just a legend or if it was evil. Genta said he hadn't heard of it being evil and mentioned that the village lord had told him it had been frozen and couldn't be broken even after 1,000 years. Mira then asked if he could see the sword, but Genta apologized and said no. Mira said it was a long story and suggested they start now. Mira explained he had been searching for his brother Sadana, but no one seemed to remember him, not even his parents. He was the only one who clearly remembered his brother, and everyone else had forgotten him. Then, their father Afu appeared and said, "I don't think people come here just to chat." Genta replied that people always came to the store, to which Afu said, "You're very serious." Genta responded it was just a joke, mentioning they seemed concerned about Mira, which was why he had come. Afu said she was glad to hear him joke. Genta then asked when Mira's brother disappeared. Mira explained it happened in late April that spring. It wasn't strange, but he had noticed it. His brother had mentioned he was going to see his daughter before he vanished. He told Genta about a flower in his brother's room that he didn't know the name of. It had a strong fragrance, small white petals with a yellow center, and a white line in the middle. His brother wasn't one to care for flowers, so it caught his curiosity. Genta asked when Mira found the flower, and Mira said it was after his brother's disappearance. He was the only one who went into his brother's room, so he thought his brother had left it there. Genta asked if the flower was still there, and Mira said he kept it as proof, hoping it could help him. Genta expressed his intention to visit the castle the next day. The next day, Genta visited Afu's father's restaurant. He was greeted by Natsu and ordered his food. Afu's father asked Genta when he had started this work. Genta replied it had only been a few days. Afu's father suggested he needed to put in more effort. Afu asked her father what he meant. Natsu then asked Genta if he was close to Miura. Afu said they weren't that close, but he visited occasionally, and they talked. Genta replied it wasn't much, and Afu agreed, but added he was nice to her, serious but kind. Natsu asked if he was the man she had bumped into before. Afu confirmed, and Natsu remarked that he was very humble. Afu's father mentioned that when it came to swords, Genta's eyes changed color. He then handed Genta something, saying it was a gift from Miura. Genta said he couldn't take it, but Afu's father insisted, saying it was of no use to him. Genta eventually accepted and promised to keep it. Afu's father thanked him and addressed him as Mr. Genta. Afu apologized for her father's insistence, and Genta asked about the flowers with the white line. Were they water lilies? Afu confirmed, and Genta noted they seemed small, and that they might not be water lilies after all. Finally, we see a little girl playing with a ball, while her parents watched her with happiness. As the girl looked at her parents, they suddenly vanished, and she dropped the ball from her hands. Meanwhile, Genta and Miura arrived at Miura's home, where Miura invited him inside. They were greeted by Miura's mother, who asked who Genta was. Genta stepped forward politely, introduced himself, and apologized for arriving unannounced. Miura's mother welcomed him and asked her son to explain more. Genta mentioned he came from Kaduno, and she recognized it as the village known for blacksmiths. Miura confirmed and added that Genta was a samurai who shared his interest in katanas. He invited Genta to stay the night. Grateful, Miura's mother thanked Genta. When he asked why, she explained that Genta had brought joy back into Miura's life. After entering the room, Genta complimented her, but Miura said she was more embarrassing than kind. Then Miura showed Genta the flower he had found. Genta identified it as a daffodil, though smaller than expected, and asked if Miura was sure he had seen them in spring. Miura confirmed. Genta then told him something unsettling, that the girl Miura's brother had gone to meet might have been a demon, and that his brother could have been taken to another world. The daffodils were evidence of that. Miura asked if the flowers came from the demon's world, and Genta asked to see his brother's room. Miura agreed and told Genta to follow, but Genta paused, asking him to go ahead. When Miura insisted he wouldn't know the way alone, Genta assured him it would be fine. Once Miura left, Genta trailed him silently, thinking that his open presence might interfere with something. As Miura entered his brother's room, he caught a strange perfume in the air that made him dizzy. Then, everything changed. He found himself in another world, witnessing a young girl trying to save her parents from a fire. She failed, and everything was reduced to ashes. When she got up, people were terrified of her. She tried to reach out, but they ran from her. Looking into the water, she saw her red eyes, a sign she had become a demon. She mourned the loss of her parents, her home, and even her fragmented memories. Feeling like she had lost herself, she fled, knowing she could never return to the garden of her past. Time passed. She grew up in the city and eventually came upon Sadana, Miura's brother, at Are's house, practicing as his family watched. The sight made her cry. She wanted to go back. Imagining her parents again, she began to play with the ball. Then Miura woke up in that same strange world and wondered what was happening. Genta appeared behind him, startling him. He explained that it seemed they had crossed into the place tied to Sadana's room. When Miura asked where they were, Genta pointed out the fire, the demon girl, and the ruined house, noting none of it should still exist. He asked if Miura had seen it too. Miura nodded. They then saw the girl playing ball in front of Sadana. Miura rushed forward to his brother, but was suddenly struck by pain in his head. He asked Sadana what he wanted him to cook, saying he had improved. But the girl interrupted, telling Sadana to stop, urging him to give up and leave. Sadana, however, said it was time to make his special soba. The girl pleaded with him, explaining that she had a family and a home she wanted to return to. She begged him not to let sympathy bind him there. "This is the garden of happiness," she said, "where I can see my parents. But you must leave." Sadana gently told the girl she misunderstood. He explained that it's not a home that creates people, but people who create homes. Happiness, he said, can be found anywhere, and any place that doesn't bring joy can't truly be called home. The girl questioned how he could know that. He replied that she had spent a century here alone and must have felt it deep inside. He then offered to leave this place, but only if she came with him. She said that was impossible. This garden belonged to her. Sadana then asked, "What if we lived together?" suggesting he could quit being a samurai and they could live quietly somewhere else. He even asked if she wanted to be his daughter, but the girl refused, saying she couldn't leave and couldn't see him as a father. Sedana smiled and said, "Alright, that's awkward, but I'll wait until you change your mind." He told her he meant it and that the day she saw him as a father, they'd leave together. The girl, though, doubted that day would ever come. "What a shame," Sedana sighed. "Looks like I'm stuck here forever." Then he vanished. Aramori, shocked, asked the girl where his brother had gone. She said softly, "No one's here anymore. It's all gone." Desperate, Aramori begged her to bring him back. Genta stepped in, telling him the truth. Sedana wasn't coming back. Aramori, confused and emotional, said he had just seen him. Genta explained that while Sedana had been there, it wasn't what it seemed. Genta then used the daffodils to explain. He said daffodils bloom in winter, but Sedana disappeared in spring, and now it was autumn, yet these flowers were blooming again. That meant this place wasn't bound by their world's time. He once thought the daffodils always bloomed in the demon's world, but now he realized that time here moved much faster. The girl confirmed this. She revealed she had the power of a dreamer, able to create a memory world, a dream garden of past happiness. But she couldn't trap anyone here. Her power was only a beautiful longing. Aramori asked about his brother again. Was he dead? The girl answered that no one remained here anymore. Then, with sadness and gratitude, she admitted that she had stolen his brother from him, but also thanked him, saying Hayoma Sedana had given her salvation. She said they'd return to their world upon waking. Genta asked her what she would do next. She said she would continue to gaze at all she had lost, and that the man, Sedana, had spent his life trying to give her a home. Genta assured her that she would one day fulfill her promise to Sedana. When they returned to their world, Aramori reflected on what had happened and finally understood why his brother had chosen to stay. Later, at Afu's father's restaurant, Aramori shared what he discovered in historical records. A great fire 200 years ago that likely took the girls home. He suspected the land where Mara's castle now stands was once her family's land. He asked Genta if he believed it too. Genta nodded. It would explain the strange bond between their world and hers. Genta apologized for not being more help, but Aramori assured him he had done more than enough. He praised Sedana as a man who followed his heart, even if they never fully understood his choices. As Aramori left to resume his duties, Afu stopped him and said his brother was amazing. Even if no one remembered him, Sedana had given everything to help someone. The words moved Aramori to tears. He said he was proud of his brother. Afterward, both Afu and her father thanked Genta for helping Aramori. Afu's father asked why Genta looked so somber. Genta admitted he was still troubled. He explained that while they knew the demon as Sedana, her real name for him was Hayoma. Afu's father confirmed that the name Hayoma was real, but only close family or a lord would know it. Laughing softly, Afu's father pointed out that if the girl called him Hayoma, then she must have been seen as family by Sedana. Genta then recalled something. Miura's mother used to call her son by a different name, Natsu. That name, too, was something only family or a lord would know. Genta noted that demons don't lie, but they sometimes hide the full truth. He suggested that Sedana hadn't died, but had lived over 20 years in the dream world, while only a month passed in reality. By the time he returned, he was an old man who couldn't go back to his old life. So, he moved to the city, bought an old house, and opened a soba shop in Edido. Genta added that if he was wrong, he welcomed correction. Afu's father mused that if time moved faster there, maybe Sedana had died of old age. But Genta disagreed. He believed Sedana was still alive because the girl smiled, and that smile meant she had found a new father. Right, Sedana, he whispered. Afu's father teased, "That's not fair. When did you figure it out?" Genta smiled. At the moment, everything ended. There were hints all along, not just names, but things like the samurai tools in that soba shop. Tools only a samurai like Sedana would own. Afu's father confirmed the truth and mentioned that Miura was often bothered by his appearance whenever they met in public, which is why he gave him the small hair care stick. Genta asked Afu's father if he had told Miura that he was his brother, believing Miura would be glad to know his brother was alive. Afu's father, Sedan, explained that he chose to stay with the one who needed protection the most. Since then, he had lost his identity as a member of the Maya family and no longer considered himself Mayura's brother. He had grown up and was confident he'd be fine without him. He asked Genta to keep the stick as a gift since he no longer needed it. Genta called him stubborn. Sedan apologized and said, "It seems no one understood my reasoning, right?" He then asked Genta if he understood why he chose to become a father to the girl. Genta replied that there was no real reason, was there? Sedan smiled, saying it was clear. He couldn't stand seeing the girl suffer alone, so he decided to stay with her. Once someone commits to a path in life, they stick with it, regardless of whether others understand it or not. Everyone has their own way of thinking, and there's no need to explain it to others. Genta agreed, saying that our personal reasons are meant for us alone, not for others to comprehend. Sedan remarked that he knew Genta would understand, complimenting him on his wisdom and calling him a devil, which surprised Genta. Sedan then said he had lived over 20 years with a devil, hadn't he? He had come to understand the impact they have on those around them. Genta asked about the girl's condition, and Sedan said she was there with them, looking at Afu. Genta noted that this explained why they wouldn't have trouble entering her world. Afu then interjected, saying, "Don't you remember what I told you? You're still just a kid." Genta responded, "I guess I still am a kid to you since you've lived more than 200 years. Afu asked, "What now? You told us your job was to eliminate demons." Genta replied that he wanted some kakisoba. Afu asked her father to bring a plate of kakisoba, and Sedan agreed, saying, "Right away." He prepared the dish and poured tea for Genta, smiling. Genta then asked Afu what was so funny, and Alfie explained that she was simply happy. "Can't you see?" she said, adding that she had always known that his life had a deeper meaning beyond just his mission, and brought him the kakisoba. As Genta reflected on the past, he said that time moves relentlessly forward, and even the things closest to our hearts slip through our fingers. Everything we lose is lost forever, with no way to get it back. Returning to the present, he told Sedan, "I made you a wonderful plate of kakisoba." This time, Genta went to Natsu's father, who offered him a new mission involving a demon named Yukio. She had been drawn by a painter, and when the painter sold her pictures, he became bedridden from exhaustion. Natsu's father asked Genta to eliminate her, promising a large reward. A comic book store owner had informed him about the situation. Genta thought Yukio seemed ordinary, but noted that appearances can be deceiving. She might be a freak of nature who only manifests under specific conditions. He then went to Sedan's restaurant and asked Afu to bring him cake soba. Suddenly, Zenji appeared, wanting to talk about Yukio, and showed Genta a picture of her again. He said the comic store owner who had the picture had died mysteriously and was believed to be cursed. The picture had torn because it fell while Zenji was carrying it, which angered Sedan. He didn't want cursed objects in his restaurant. Genta then showed them another picture of the same demon, which he got from Natsu's father. It was identical. They were surprised by how widely the image had spread and how recent it seemed, less than a year old, judging by the vivid colors. They decided to find the artist by questioning the comic book seller in Tenmacho. Zenji agreed to help, possibly out of gratitude, since Genta had taken care of Natsu in the past. They found the picture seller, and Zenji learned where the artist lived. He informed Genta, who then visited the artist's home. The artist, named Saga, was bedridden but welcomed Genta warmly, calling him polite. His room was filled with drawing tools, making Genta wonder why he'd stopped drawing. Saga explained that it was due to old age, not a curse. When Genta showed him the picture of Yukio, Saga immediately recognized it. He had drawn her himself. Genta was investigating the picture's origins. Saga explained that the painting had nothing to do with the path of hell, Ito. A man named Madara had named the woman in the picture Kazandika. Upon hearing that name, Genta was stunned. He looked at his sword and remembered that Madara had saved him and his sister in the forest. Back then, Madara was defending a village while wounded and felt useless, unable to protect the woman he loved or defeat the demon attacking them. He had no choice but to protect her and was unhappy about it. But over time, even the most resolved hearts change. He advised Genta to appreciate his own pain and protect Suzun and Sheri. Returning to the present, Genta wanted to know more about Madara, his foster father. But one couldn't talk about Madara without mentioning Yukio. In the past, when Saga was young and inexperienced, he met a beautiful woman who refused to give her name, but told him she'd be under his care. They lived together and Saga began to draw. Madara came to deliver a message to the woman and was frustrated at being reduced to a courier, despite being a skilled swordsman. Back in the present, Saga told Genta he used to visit Ito every year and often complained about it. He said the original picture of the beautiful woman was indeed drawn by him while she lived with him. However, the copies in circulation now were wood prints from a newer draft he created. Despite its beauty, it wasn't just a portrait of a woman, it was a portrait of a demon. Genta noticed that the sword in her hands seemed to belong to Madara, which impressed Saga. Saga didn't want to tell Genta the full story to avoid upsetting him. He recalled how Madara, despite often complaining about the woman, had deep feelings for her. Saga never saw her himself, but was told she came from Shinano, fled to Kadana, and then to Ito. This confirmed the connection between the woman and the picture. Genta was shocked to realize she was the same woman Madara once loved. They had jokingly called her a picture of a demon to tease her, but the painting carried deep, possibly cursed emotions. Saga sometimes wondered if he could be punished for selling the painting, though he believed the misfortunes were coincidences. Still, Madara had many demands during the painting's creation, wanting it to be perfect. Seeing the woman had even reminded Saga of a princess, although she and the woman were the same person. For Madara, the feelings were intense and obsessive. The girl had once said something similar, and Madara told Genta this long ago. She was from Swa in Shinano. Saga remembered how, after completing the painting, Madara wanted to name it Yasuka, in honor of the girl from Shinano, but changed his mind due to her beauty and instead chose Kazandika. He then told Genta that Kazandika was tea from start to finish. Madara had intense feelings for her, what some might call cursed love. Saga admired how well Genta handled the story emotionally. He gave Genta the original picture, which was slightly stained but still intact, and asked him not to hate Madara. Though foolish, Madara deeply cared for his family. After having a daughter and meeting Genta and Suzun, he never returned to Ito. Genta recalled when Madara had taken him in and taught him important life lessons. Back at Sedan's restaurant, food was served, but Genta seemed off. They realized that something had changed in him after visiting Saga. He had seen a side of his father he never knew. But that's normal for fathers. They panic, they worry, and they have flaws. Still, they remain fathers. Later, at Natsu's father's home, Genta reported that the picture had no real link to demons, and the man's death was just coincidence. Everything appeared normal. No unusual or dangerous events had occurred. Natsu's father thanked Genta and invited him to eat. They poured drinks for each other and shared a moment. Natsu's father admitted he drank often to escape his responsibilities, and Genta, who also loved to drink under the moonlight, asked if they could share another drink sometime. In the 7th year, a demonist approaches Genta while he is alone, begging him to buy her because she is in great pain. However, Genta refuses. She pleads again, but he rejects her once more. The demonist then attacks Genta, but fails to harm him. He tries to learn her name, but she doesn't give him the chance. Eventually, he manages to kill her, and her white smoke appears. A lady witnesses everything and rewards Genta, explaining that she had an agreement with him to kill this girl because she was originally a low-ranking prostitute in Yoshiwara who contracted syphilis, which destroyed her both physically and mentally. She ultimately became a demon and killed a man under a cherry tree. Genta questions why he was given this task. Was it out of pity? The lady admits she is emotional and fears she will end up in the same situation someday. She cannot ignore it when she thinks about it. She thanks Genta, surprising him with her self-perception. She explains that as someone who earns a living this way, she can read men's expressions to some extent and sees his expression as that of a lost child. When Genta asks her who she is, she introduces herself as Utaka, a common name among street prostitutes, saying that the name alone is enough. She then tells him that if she ever becomes a demon under the cherry trees, she hopes he will kill her quickly, but at that time, she won't reward him. Genta clarifies he doesn't work for free, which makes her think he is emotionless. She then leaves, and Genta feels this woman is very mysterious. Next, the scene shifts to Kunrizen Temple, crowded due to a holy day. There are Afu and Natsu. Natsu asks where the man she invited is, and Afu tells her that Genta and Armor are working, so they didn't come, and Zenji couldn't attend because he was the one who invited them. Natsu mimics her father, who once said that any good merchant knows holiday events are great opportunities for business. She tells Afu this and suggests they enjoy themselves at the festival. They play with kids, eat sausages and sweets, then stop by a certain plant. From it, Natsu learns they are in the middle of summer and asks Afu the plant's name. Afu says it's called Hasuki because its fruit is pink like hers, and some say it's drenched in the fire of the year, making it seem like it's covered in flames. There are many theories about it, but no precise source. Afu also tells her some write it as Sasuke, meaning demon lantern, which might be the shining light from demons when they roam, which scares Natsu. Afu thinks Natsu is afraid of demons, but Natsu says everyone is. She reveals she was attacked twice by demons and nearly died if not for Genta. She recalls that 4 years ago, he was her bodyguard for 2 nights, and when she saw him cut off a demon's arm, the child inside her saw it like a living duel from a storybook. Then, Afu asks if Natsu loves Genta, but Natsu denies it, saying it's not love, he is just someone from many stories of her own. She recalls his words about why he walks his path and tells Afu that when Genta looked at her then, it wasn't the gaze of a fighter, but of someone fragile enough to break at the slightest touch. That's when she realized he was no different from her, and that's why she feels comfortable around him. She thinks calling this feeling love would disappoint all the women in the world. Afu agrees, saying Genta avoids his feelings and refuses to confront them. Then, Mr. Akitsu calls them over to see his merchandise and encourages them to buy if they like something. Natsu whispers to Afu, asking who he is. Afu says he's a regular customer at their restaurant from Kyoto. Akitsu introduces himself as Sumiguro Akitsu, surprising Natsu because Sumiguro Akitsu is known as one of the best metalworkers. When Akitsu tries not to make her worry, she tells him she's Tohaku's daughter, so how could she not worry? She also asks if his goods live up to his name. Glancing at his merchandise, she finds it good. Akitsu shows 2 matching shells, which Natsu recognizes as a bit worn but finely crafted. He tells her that since they are the same age, if she gives these shells as a gift to someone she cares about, he will definitely fall in love with her. However, Natsu denies having someone she cares for. Afu intervenes, saying she does have someone but is embarrassed to say it, making Natsu even more embarrassed, causing her to laugh. He then shows her a puffed bird, which Natsu finds cute but says it doesn't compare to the shells. Sumiguro Akitsu explains that in the lineage of kings, birds transform into shells that drop into the seas, though he thinks this is just a myth. He adds that the birds disappear in late autumn and drop into the seas, turning into shells. He sees this bird as very suitable for Natsu because it's small compared to shells. Natsu feels he's mocking her, but he clarifies that he isn't. He says it's good to be a puffed bird that can survive the winter. He explains that people's hearts change and wishes for her feelings to bloom and turn into a shell. However, Natsu objects to being called a bird, although she likes it and decides to buy it. After giving him the money, Akitsu hands her something as a gift, which surprises Natsu. It's a real Sumiguro Kanashi. She inquires how he got it, but he tells her it's not worth much and that he'll throw it away later if she doesn't take it, which shocks Natsu. So, Akitsu insists she keeps it, saying it will bring her happiness. Natsu accepts and thanks him before they say their goodbyes. As they walk away, the bells ring more intensely and a plant falls from the tree, revealing a large hidden shadow. Next, we move to Genta, who is pursuing another demon. He locates and kills it, then goes to the person who assigned him the task to receive his reward. The man offers him some special sake from a rare source, but Genta refuses and leaves. Grateful, the man tells him to ask if he ever needs anything in the future. While walking alone, Utaka appears and tells Genta he came out unscathed. When he asks if she was worried, she confirms she was. She says if she died because of the information she sold, she couldn't live with herself. Genta gives her something for that information. Then Utaka asks Genta what's bothering him. He replies that he's troubled because he killed something he didn't want to, but couldn't choose to use his sword differently. As she starts to leave, she tells him about another man who specializes in killing demons, but it's not him. It's Muji, who can control shikimi and reportedly uses animals like dogs and birds to hunt demons, though she's unsure and calls it just talk. She warns him not to let this new rival steal his work. Next, Genta goes to the Sadada restaurant, where they are waiting for him. Afu tells him Natsu isn't doing well. When Natsu sees Genta, she rushes over, grabs his hand, and says she missed him. Genta pulls his hand away, but Natsu tells him not to. Then Afu explains what happened. The first time Natsu placed the kazanshi on her head, something strange occurred. She started crying and asking about Genta. Genta asks Natsu to check the kazanshi. When he holds it, he sees it's completely ordinary, with nothing wrong. Sana asks to break it, but Genta refuses. Natsu requests her kazanchi again and hugs it tightly. Then Zenji arrives, surprised by the situation, and tries to pull her away from Genta, but she yells at him. They all sit together at the same table, with Natsu still clinging to Genta, while Zenji wonders what happened. Genta asks Afu where they bought the kazanchi, and she tells him it was Mr. Akitsu, giving all the information about him. When Genta wants to find him to ask questions, Zenji says Akitsu has been dead for a while. Literally, he died decades ago. Zenji explains that Akitsu moved on to selling combs and sword accessories, including kazanchi, and that his works are rare and hard to obtain. Afu mentions that Natsu said the hairpin was a piece from Sumiguro, leading Zenji to believe Akitsu might have returned as a demon to hunt them down. Then Sana says she saw Mr. Akitsu with her own eyes and insists it's impossible for him to be a demon. Genta also believes Sana's words, and Zenji is amazed that Genta believes Sana, despite never having met Akitsu before. Afu asks what they should do, which leaves everyone feeling hopeless. As Genta prepares to leave in search of Akitsu, Natsu holds on tightly so he won't move. Genta asks her to let him go, but she refuses, saying she's waited a long time and won't leave him. He then asks why she wants to be near him and why she calls him her brother. She admits she doesn't understand, but tells him that just as birds embrace blooming flowers, there's a reason for it. All she wants is to stay by his side, and after a long wait, her wish is fulfilled. She is satisfied. Genta tells her he will go out and return again, asking her not to worry and to wait for him in the same place. When he leaves, everyone is surprised by how well he handles the situation. We return to Kenrizen Temple, where Genta asks about Akitsu in several places, but can't find him. Suddenly, he recalls what happened in the past. Returning to the present, Akitsu appears behind him, saying he's sure there will be a beautiful moon tonight and that he likes to drink sake on such days. Genta asks if he needs anything, not realizing it's Akitsu. Akitsu tells him he came looking for him and says there is only one reason: a demon would seek him out. When Genta asks for his name, Akitsu reveals his demonic power, says his name is Akitsu, and summons a pack of dogs through his. Then Akitsu ordered the dogs to attack Genta. The 3 dogs lunged at him, but Genta cut off the head of the first one, which impressed Akitsu. He then summoned another dog to push Genta further. When the dogs attacked all at once, Genta repelled them with strikes from his sword. However, they reappeared, and Genta was surprised there seemed to be no end to them. He used his special power of invisibility. Though he kept killing the dogs repeatedly, they reappeared each time, recognizing him through their strong sense of smell. Eventually, Genta revealed himself and launched a quick attack on Akitsu, striking and pushing him back. When Akitsu tried to stand up, Genta pointed his sword at his head and split him in half, but nothing happened, as it was just a mirage. Though Genta had made a solid attempt, he had failed. Akitsu vanished, and the dogs restrained Genta with their teeth and knocked him down. Akitsu praised his dogs, said goodbye, and tried to leave. But Genta transformed again, surprising Akitsu. Genta realized the souls of Akitsu's dogs were like superior demons and stole them, turning them against Akitsu. The dogs surrounded him, preventing his escape. As Genta approached, Akitsu pleaded for mercy. Genta asked why he should spare him and demanded answers, threatening to erase his memories if he refused. Akitsu agreed to speak, although he claimed he could defend himself. Genta emphasized that Akitsu had too many tricks, but Akitsu was surprised since Genta hadn't even shown his true power yet. He asked Genta to remove the dogs, fearing them. Genta complied, which made Akitsu laugh, thinking him naive, but Genta trusted his words. Akitsu claimed others had lied, but he hadn't. He asked for his dogs back and promised not to run. Picking them up, he said he wouldn't tire them out again. When Genta asked about this, Akitsu explained that the figures were just papier-mâché, infused with emotions. Emotions, especially negative ones, could become demons, so it wasn't strange for objects to come to life. This was known as Tsukumagami. He described himself as a spiritual medium controlling magical creatures, but with Tsukumami instead. Genta thought Akitsu came from an exorcist family, but Akitsu denied it. Famous exorcists like Nagumo of the Cursort and Kakami of the Magadama inherited their techniques by blood, but Akitsu followed a school-based method. Originally, Sumiguro Akitsu was a skilled craftsman, and everything he created developed its own spirit, not metaphorically, but literally. Eventually, he invented a technique to turn these into Tsukumomi controllable beings. After Sumigiro's death, his teachings passed to his students, and Akitsu became the third successor. The name Tsukomomi was known more for the craftsmanship than spirit use. When Genta asked about his name and the kanzushi he gave Natsu, Akitsu recalled that he had given it to someone rather than sold it. This didn't matter to Genta. He wanted to know why Natsu had changed upon wearing it and what the story behind it was. To Akitsu, it was just an ordinary hairpin. But then he remembered something and told Genta he could help solve her problem if Genta moved his sword away. Though doubtful, Genta agreed, thinking he had no choice but to believe him, whether Akitsu was lying or not. He lowered his sword and went to Natsu. When Natsu saw him, she went to him and greeted him, saying she had been waiting because he asked her to. He apologized for being late, but Natsu said she always knew he would return to her in the end. Then Genta asked her to go out, and they wandered around the village at night. Genta stopped at the snowy willow trees, whose flowers bloom in spring like snow. Natsu marveled at how he knew everything and called him her dear brother. But Genta didn't like the term. It made him feel weak and exposed, which he hated. He told her he had wanted to protect him, but failed. The promise he made on that rainy night was broken easily, and he had failed to be her loving brother until the end. He said he was no longer Genta, and when it came to her and Suzun, he wasn't just an older brother. But Natsu objected. She let go of his hands and asked why a bird needed a reason to sleep near a flower, saying the same applied to siblings. No matter the circumstances, their bond couldn't be broken. After many moons, she had finally found her way back to him, and she had no doubt he would also find a path that brings him happiness. Life was a long journey to find where one's feelings belong. Though Genta didn't believe he could find that place, Natsu assured him that was the very purpose of life. He wasn't convinced, but thanked her for listening to his complaint. Then he approached her to return her to her other half, which made Natsu marvel and cry. Genta remembered Akitsu had told him to give Natsu the koge, so she would return to her nature. She took the koge from him and placed it with the kanzushi, which caused a bird to appear and fly away. Then Natsu lost consciousness. Akitsu appeared and congratulated Genta, telling him it had worked perfectly. By the river, Akitsu explained the word koge, a kanji that means scratcher. It's a hair tool used to style and scratch the head without ruining the hairstyle, traditionally used by ladies and boys, while men kept it next to their swords. It was symbolic, like an older brother to a younger sister. All these kai were made by Sumiguro, and since Genta had the sister piece to this pin, Akitsu guessed that was why Natsu called him dear brother. But Genta realized the kanzushi carried lingering emotions from its previous owner and thought Natsu had been overtaken by those feelings, making her seek a dear brother. Akitsu laughed, saying it sounded like something from a play. It seemed those two pieces were created as a pair. Akitsu noticed wisteria leaves falling, signaling the arrival of a bell's call. He quoted a poem from the many, saying Sumiguro was quite the joker. Genta recalled Natsu's words, that the bell hairpins were always searching for wisteria flowers, and realized strange things really do happen in life. But to Akitsu, the important thing was that the bell had returned to its brother and all ended well. When Genta asked where the bell flew, Akitsu oddly answered, over there, which surprised Genta. Then Akitsu explained, it flew toward the distant heavens beyond the seas, where the feelings of home call it. The only way to know its location would be to ask the bell itself. But in any case, feelings always return to where they belong, and that's what Akitsu believed. Genta hoped that was true. As Akitsu prepared to leave, Genta stopped him, saying he should ask permission, and even threatened him, reminding him that he was a demon in a human body. But Akitsu didn't care. He said Genta was a loyal friend, not a danger to anyone, and that he was just a craftsman. He only kills demons when asked, and only fights those who threaten him. He doesn't harm demons that do no wrong. Before leaving, he told Genta that in the end, they are all demons, so they all fall under the kind Genta hunts. No matter how kind or loyal, or how close to humans they are, that truth doesn't change. Genta understood this. Akitsu was pleased and bid him farewell. The next day, at the Sedana restaurant, Zenji was happy that Natsu had returned to her true self, but wondered why she seemed sad. Afu understood. Natsu still had clear memories of what had happened. Zenji teased her, mimicking her spoiled speech, which embarrassed her and made her angry. Then Sedana offered Natsu a drink on the house, which cheered her up, and she thanked him. However, she asked Sadana about Genta, who hadn't shown up that day. Sadana asked if she was ready to transform again in an instant, but Natsu said she was content just being a little bird for now, and wondered how she would face it all from now on. We then move to Genta, who encounters Yutaka during the day, a surprise since she typically isn't active at that hour. He was taken aback that she was out looking for men at such a time. Yutaka tried to express concern for him, but Genta, true to form, responded rudely. Still, Yutaka invited him to chat about a rumor that had been going around, thinking a bit of gossip might lighten his mood or distract him. As they talked, Genta suddenly heard the sound of a bell ringing from somewhere nearby. He asked Yutaka if she could hear it too. She said she had actually heard the same bell earlier in the morning. It had disturbed her sleep and continued to ring loudly, which is why she was now outside. Even now, she said, it was screaming nearby. Yutaka thought it could be a demon's doing, but Genta disagreed. He said it wasn't a demon, it was simply a bell that had found its way through the night and come to rest beside a flower. Then, in 2009, the scene shifts to the Atsukimi Institute, where Maka was cleaning with her mother. Maka wasn't happy. She felt shy and embarrassed that her friend might see her doing chores. Her mother gently reminded her that this was their duty as women born in this temple lineage. She shared that she had been given two sacred responsibilities. One was to add a kanji to her daughter's name, and the other was to preserve the Ekam lineage from extinction. Maka's grandmother had strictly emphasized the importance of passing down these traditions, no matter how difficult life became. They must be passed on because they were rooted in the heart. Their purpose was to preserve hope. That's why all the women in their family bore the syllable ya in their names. Though the original feelings and intent behind the traditions may have faded, they still had a place to return to. Now it was Maka's turn to be clear about her own feelings. Then her mother left to prepare dinner. Soon after, a man approached Maka and asked if this was the Ekam temple. Maka replied yes, but explained that they now called it Atsukimi, although she didn't know why. She mentioned that the rule about the name came from the Genta temple. The man then asked her to repeat the temple's name. She replied that it was called Genta, which caused the man to burst into tears, surprising Maka. He turned and left. Maka, watching him go, called after him, asking if he had a question, but she realized she had already answered it. She had said exactly what he needed to hear. Later, Maka returned to school and felt joy being with her friend. But she would see that same man again, the one who had come to her at the temple, his presence lingering like an unanswered prayer. Sometime later, in the auditorium of a high school, students gathered in full to enjoy a classic stage play titled The Courtesan on a Rainy Night. This play was based on the diaries of Edawira courtesans, often called yataka in the context of old society. Many courtesans came from samurai or merchant families who had fallen into difficult circumstances due to family misfortune, and keeping diaries became a common way for them to record their lives. The performance began with a solemn narration about a samurai who was arranged to marry in order to save his declining family. However, the woman he was to wed, daughter of a samurai family, appeared so indifferent that the samurai felt hurt and canceled the engagement. The woman's family slowly fell apart, her father died in despair, and her mother was lost in endless grief. The heroine realized there was never a true bond between them, and when no one called her by name anymore, she felt no need to cling to that name. This mood blended with the stage setting as the curtain gradually rose, revealing the onset of a rainy night. On that rainy night, Miura Naotsugu happened to shelter from the rain with a courtesan. His first impression was a strong attraction to her appearance and aura. However, the woman, an experienced courtesan, remained calm, which confused Naotsugu and led him to quickly apologize. Seeing the rain hadn't stopped, she decided to leave. But before going, Naotsugu called her back to ask her name. She introduced herself as Yataka, believing the simple name was enough to be remembered. Her image, with a faint smile in the night, made Naotsugu feel as if he had just met someone from another world. That same rainy night, Naotsugu noticed a figure appearing near them. Yataka's reaction showed it was an old acquaintance, and her gaze carried a mix of familiarity and unmistakable fear. This detail made Naotsugu begin to suspect a complicated relationship between them. The next morning, Naotsugu went to the familiar noodle shop to find Genta. During their conversation, Genta recalled the heavy rain the night before and talked about the drinking party at the Asa Tavern. They both drank quite a lot, and Genta was so tireless that Afu had to remind him to slow down. Still, it was a joyful evening until they parted ways and met the heavy rain. Naotsugu, also asked about Genta's earlier mention of looking for work. Genta confirmed and added that since rumors about demons were spreading, he would return to Akusa that night to investigate under the night's shadow. Naotsugu went back to the place where he had sheltered from the rain before, seemingly drawn back by some unknown feeling, unsure of what he expected there. Yataka appeared again with her familiar umbrella, and their second meeting took place in a quiet, contemplative atmosphere. Naotsugu was still haunted by the mysterious figure from before. When he brought it up, Yataka simply said it was an old acquaintance and advised him not to concern himself with the private matters of a courtesan. Faced with her cautious attitude, Naotsugu was embarrassed and admitted the real reason he returned was because he hoped to see her again. Though initially playful, Yataka soon recognized the sincerity in the young man's eyes, which made her reflect on the strange person. Not long after, the mysterious figure reappeared, their face unmistakable. Yataka's eyes showed both familiarity and clear fear. Her shoulders trembled slightly, and Naotsugu instinctively stepped forward to shield her. That action immediately made the figure disappear, restoring peace to the space. The next morning, Genta arrived at the noodle shop with a heavy heart. He shared that he had just missed a rare opportunity to capture a demon, creatures that only appeared on rainy nights. This failure left him with lingering regret. At that moment, Naotsugu also entered, seeking advice from Genta and Afu about love. He confessed he had fallen for a woman, surprising everyone, especially Zenji, who had thought Naotsugu's visit after the drinking party was just for casual fun. It turned out Naotsugu truly wanted to impress that woman by any means. Zenji quickly hatched a plan for a heroic rescue act, a staged assault on Yataka to give Naotsugu a chance to step in. But the idea was soon dismissed as cliché and unrealistic. Instead, the shop owner gave sincere advice. Winning someone's heart required time and mutual understanding. He shared his own grandfather's example, who spent decades pursuing true love. Naotsugu listened attentively and resolved to wait patiently. He stood in the same place, hoping one day the girl would approach him. Before leaving, he thanked everyone. The mood suddenly darkened when Afu mentioned something strange. According to Naotsugu and Genta, both had experienced events on rainy nights, but in reality, those days had been completely clear, without a single drop of rain. The story shifted to Yataka's perspective, the courtesan whose fate was wrapped in the past and whose lineage traced back to samurai. She reflected that humans only perceive what's before their eyes, but absence of sight doesn't mean absence of existence. Despite knowing this, tonight she stood waiting in an imagined rain at the old garden, only to be disappointed when Naotsugu didn't appear. Old memories flooded back with the cold wind. In Yataka's heart, the one thing she couldn't let go was her brother, who had loved her like a blood sister. The cherished keepsake, a phoenix-shaped hairpin he gave her, was now lost, leaving an unfillable void. Just then, the figure from the past suddenly appeared before her, accompanied by a faint sound like a call from the afterlife. For a moment, she told herself it was impossible, but the feeling was too clear. A vague warning echoed, urging her not to look, but it was too late. Naotsugu appeared hurriedly, asking about her condition. Upon seeing her trembling, she firmly asserted she had seen the person from her past, the one her heart never forgot. Naotsugu gradually realized this place was truly haunted by spiritual energy, causing people to see illusions. The figure Yataka recognized was likely not her old companion, but a malevolent entity. He drew his sword and faced the enemy in a tense battle. Though lacking extraordinary power like Genta, Naotsugu's swordsmanship was enough to hold his ground. But the final strike came from Genta, who unexpectedly appeared and defeated the demon. Yataka rushed to Naotsugu's side, worried and moved by his bravery. Genta took the opportunity to explain that the creature was not a full demon, but a half-formed spirit born from unresolved grudges. It had the power to reflect hidden pain in those it faced. This explained why Yataka saw her past companion and why Naotsugu saw his brother. As the stage curtain fell, the audience was brought back to the present. Mazuka had fallen asleep throughout the performance. Her close friend promised to help finish the reflection paper. In response, Mazuka gave her a chocolate bar as thanks. The next afternoon, Karo brought the essay to Mazuka, meeting Genta, the reincarnated figure. Karo took the chance to share impressions of the play. He was dissatisfied that Genta's character was portrayed as weak, though he was the one who had defeated the demon. But since Yataka loved Naotsugu, it made sense she would idealize her lover's image. Moreover, Karo was particularly impressed by the character Yataka. Even though she knew her husband's friend was a demon, she remained silent and chose to hide the truth. The whole group of classmates was captivated and decided to find the original novel to read more. One even expressed a wish to personally read Yataka's diary lines to better understand how she viewed the samurai from long ago. Genta continued to kill demons and noticed that his sword was getting more stained with blood each time, but he realized it was actually his heart that was truly stained. Then Genta went to the client who had asked him to kill the demon and received his reward. The client thanked Genta for his efforts and told him that the snow was as beautiful as the moon in autumn and the flowers in spring. He added that his boss had enjoyed slices of nature's elegance while indulging in drink, and that he planned to honor his memory by building a tomb and pouring a bottle of his favorite wine. Then he bid Genta farewell. After that, Genta went home to rest. The next day, he went shopping with Afu, who told him that all the palace servants and the samurai who guarded it had suddenly disappeared. Genta confirmed this and told her that afterward, a dozen or so demons had taken it as their lair. Afu thought it had been a busy night for Genta and asked him to carry the bags for her so he wouldn't feel tired, but Genta refused, telling her that today was a celebration. Then they were drawn to a man selling sake, who was marketing it wonderfully, attracting a crowd. They considered buying from him, but Genta refused because he couldn't handle the crowd, and they left. Then we move on to Sadana's store. Zenji arrived, and Natsu and Genta were waiting for him, but he was late because the store was crowded. Natsu told him that this party was for him, so he shouldn't be late, and that they were now waiting for Miura. Miura arrived and apologized for being late, and Afu told them they would begin now. Zenji started talking, and when he spoke about trivial things, Natsu asked him to skip it and speak quickly. Then Genta announced that he had been promoted to senior clerk in Sugea City, and that he appreciated everyone's presence to celebrate. He expressed his gratitude, and Afu and Miura congratulated him, asking him to help Mr. Juizao as best he could. Zenji confirmed that he would and that he would make Sugea the biggest store in the city. Miura was sure Zenji would succeed, and Zenji declared he would be one of the greatest clerks in history. Natsu thought he was full of hot air, but Zenji asked her to let him enjoy the party tonight. Then Sadana came to them and asked them to stop fighting and offered food, which surprised Zenji. Sadana said a day like this required more than ordinary soba and congratulated him on the promotion. Zenji thanked Sadana, and Afu didn't forget the drinks and poured some for him. Zenji was surprised by how special the drink was and asked her how she got it, but Genta was the one who bought it. Genta told him it was a special occasion, which made Zenji happy and thankful. He asked everyone to eat before it got cold, and they celebrated while eating. Then Zenji remembered something and brought out a bottle of new sake his boss drank every night. He thought today was the right day to share it. Genta recognized the sake, and Zenji said it should be served cold. Afu offered him a cup to pour into, but Natsu took the bottle from Zenji and poured it herself, saying he was the star of the party. He was surprised by the luck of the day, feeling extremely happy, and told her that living to old age was worth it. Natsu told him he wasn't that old yet, but he said it spiritually. He joked that he couldn't believe she used to be a rude child, now pouring him sake. Natsu said she'd pretend not to hear that, and he quickly apologized. Then Zenji drank and immediately spat it out. It was very salty, smelled terrible, and was undrinkable. Miura poured him another cup, but it wasn't good either, which Zenji felt ruined the party. He offered some to Genta, who thought it was a bit weak but not bad. Natsu asked if this was the sake people were raving about. Zenji confirmed that it was what his boss drank. Then Sadana brought out more drinks, and Natsu commented that Zenji was lucky because everyone was so kind. Genta drank more, and we moved to his home. Later, Genta left and went to the bridge, where he met a prostitute. She commented that the weather was cold as snow, and he said he was looking for work. She thought he was so desperate he couldn't even talk to her, then laughed, saying she was joking. She wasn't sure she could lead him to work, but many strange stories were spreading, like a bedridden son replaced by a demon, or demons hiding under a bridge, or a wandering woman at night. She said, "That's a lot, isn't it?" She added that these troubled times might just be anxiety, and even 4 cups of black tea weren't enough to sleep. Genta said, "You mean the foreign ships in Yura?" The prostitute replied that the emperor was acting like a puppy in front of the Americans. Genta said evil spreads when society falls into chaos. She agreed and told him about a sake selling wildly, perhaps because people wanted to drink their worries away. She said it tasted like poison that would send you to heaven. Genta asked her to investigate that sake for him. She wondered if there was bad news, but he hadn't seen anything yet and hoped it was nothing. She agreed, and he thanked her but warned her to stay safe, joking that Natsu would kill him if anything happened to her. She laughed, not realizing he was joking, and noted the snow on her hand and how cold it was. Later, Natsu came to Genta's house and greeted him. Genta was surprised she found him, but Afu had directed her. She had guessed he lived nearby and mentioned he was only a stone's throw from Kihi. She told him he should have said something. They weren't strangers after all. Natsu seemed annoyed. When Natsu heard Genta's neighbors shouting, she asked who they were. Genta explained it was the neighboring family, likely the father was in another sake fit in the middle of the night. He then asked what brought her over. She said she needed his help. Zenji had been skipping work and was now drunk in a bar in Nihonbashi. Genta was surprised they had just celebrated his promotion, but Natsu confirmed it happened the next day, and all Zenji did now was drink. Her father was ready to consider this the last straw. She asked Genta to accompany her as a bodyguard, even offering to pay him. Genta refused the payment and confirmed the location. They headed to Nihonbashi, where the bar reeked of booze. Inside, Natsu approached Zenji, who was clearly drunk. When she scolded him, Zenji dismissed her and rudely suggested she was just frustrated because she was single, offering to set her up and insulting her further. Natsu, furious, nearly attacked him, but Genta stopped her. Zenji also insulted Genta, calling him a failed demon slayer. Then, in his drunkenness, he attacked Genta, who dodged and struck back, knocking Zenji down. Genta chastised him, saying that sake is a gift from heaven, but using violence over it is shameful. Just then, the mood soured. A drunk showed his sword, terrifying Natsu. The bar erupted into chaos as they attacked Genta, throwing bottles, which he blocked to protect Natsu. As more drunks lunged, a mysterious palm-like force emerged and repelled one of them. Another was repelled with the back of Genta's sword. Natsu tried to wake Zenji, but he was unconscious. Suddenly, Akitsu appeared, helping fend off the attackers. He remarked that Genta hadn't changed. Genta thanked him, saying it had been a long time, and Akitsu reminded him he was the third. Later, at Genta's house, Zenji woke up. Natsu offered him a drink. Zenji apologized profusely, but Natsu told him she didn't need excuses. She acknowledged his hurtful words, but said what mattered was that he valued her deep down. She took his hand and told him not to dwell on it. She wasn't naive enough to get mad over drunken rambling. Still, Zenji insisted on apologizing, saying the sake made him feel high but not satisfied, and seeing her had made him strangely angry, especially about Genta. Just then, Zenji's superior appeared. Hearing of his drunken outburst, he warned it was his last chance. Zenji wondered what to do now, but Natsu told him the answer was simple: work hard and make up for it. Later, Akitsu and Genta sat at his house. Akitsu, too, heard the neighbors fighting. He asked how famous Genta was, and Genta admitted he was somewhat known. Genta asked why Akitsu had been near the bar, and Akitsu explained strange things were happening in Kyoto. A man stabbed his brother after drinking strange sake. More violent crimes followed, all tied to the same sake brand from Eito. It was expensive, smelled odd, and seemed to affect behavior. They went for a walk, and Genta asked if there was other evidence. Akitsu only mentioned sightings of a strange woman at every incident, not fitting a seller's profile, but still suspicious. At the sake shop, they saw blood outside. Inside, it was chaos. The owner was dead. Akitsu noted that the clean area in the dust indicated frequent activity. The shop had been looted, but they'd taken only a specific sake, suggesting intent. Genta wondered if it was truly worth killing for. Akitsu argued this sake seemed to push people to extremes, stripping inhibitions entirely. As they investigated, two demons appeared. Genta and Akitsu fought side by side and killed them. Genta admired Akitsu's weapon, and Akitsu said maybe the demons were drawn by the scent of the sake. Genta doubted that theory, but they agreed something was very wrong. Outside, snow continued to fall heavier than before. Akitsu remarked that the snow deepened every night, and this gave Genta a bad feeling. They exited the store, and Akitsu noticed that the snow increased every night, which made Genta feel uneasy. Genta and Akitsu were on their way to Sadana's restaurant. Akitsu felt very sleepy and told Genta he hadn't slept well because of the noisy neighbors next to Genta's place, describing them as annoying. When they entered Sadana's restaurant, two men were trying to attack Ofi, but Genta arrived just in time. Ofi cried out to Genta for help. One of the bad guys asked, "Who is this Genta?" Then Genta asked, "Is this just drunken boisterousness or something else?" Akitsu thought it was something else. One of the men spoke rudely to Genta, but Akitsu warned him since he was older, which angered the thug. He almost attacked Genta, but Genta punched him, knocking him down. The other man also attacked, but Genta defeated him as well. Genta humbly said he had been lenient with them. Ofi felt relieved. Then the two men stood up again, which amazed Akitsu. As they approached to attack again, Akitsu showed something from his pocket, making the men believe Genta was afraid. He ran, and they chased after him, surprising everyone. Genta asked Akitsu what he had done. Akitsu explained it was an Atsuka momi, created from matching Uyuma seashells, an illusion that only specific people could see. He asked Genta what he thought of it. When Genta asked what he had shown them, Akitsu said it was better not to know. Ofi thanked both Genta and Akitsu, but Akitsu modestly denied doing anything. He ordered a bowl of tempura soba for Ofi, and Genta wanted the same. Then Natsu arrived and told Genta that her father had almost fired Zenji, so he had been working hard since morning. Genta asked if Zenji had shown any strange behavior. Natsu replied that he hadn't, but he had drunk excessively the night before. She sensed Genta was worried, but reassured him everything was fine. She also said she was going to buy a bottle of sake to please her father, but Genta advised her not to, which surprised her. Genta asked if her father had been drinking frozen snow sake before, mentioning no one knew its origin. He told her to have her father drink something else and warned her to be careful on her way home, saying the situation was unstable. Natsu felt like he was acting like her father, but still thanked him for the concern and left. Later that night, Genta and Akitsu went to the bridge to meet the courtesan. Genta told her that Akitsu was just a traveling companion, surprising Akitsu at how he diminished his importance. The courtesan didn't mind and said she had looked into the matter Genta had asked about. She didn't know where frozen snow was brewed or how it arrived in Edo, but she found that a wholesale distribution store in Kurame supplied the entire region. She reminded Genta about Mizukiya, the liquor store where he had dealt with a demon in the warehouse. Some customers had asked about the sake's origin, but the owner didn't care and claimed it came from a sacred spring. The courtesan informed Genta that the owner was out restocking and wouldn't be back until tomorrow evening. She suggested Genta visit then. He thanked her and gave her money. She then told him a blonde beauty had been coming and going from Mizukiya, which surprised Genta. She added that frozen snow might be foreign sake. Genta immediately denied this and almost attacked the courtesan, scaring her. He apologized. When she asked if he knew the blonde woman, he didn't respond. Back at Genta's house, noise from the neighboring house continued, waking Akitsu. Suddenly, they heard a loud crash and ran to check it out. They found destruction and saw a demon emerging. The father had turned into a demon and killed his daughter, angering Genta. The demon attacked both of them, but they dodged it. Genta punched and injured the demon, then knocked it down again until it turned into white smoke. Akitsu encouraged Genta, saying that's what was expected of him. Inside the man's house, they found a large stash of sake. Akitsu suggested they question the liquor store owner. Then we moved to Natsu's father's house. Natsu asked him about Zenji, wondering if he was still angry. Her father admitted he was disappointed but respected Zenji and acknowledged that he was still young. As long as he worked hard and lived diligently, nothing in the world was truly unforgivable. He said it was up to Zenji to make amends and that most people don't understand the dangers of their actions until it's too late. When they do, fear overwhelms them. When Natsu asked if her father had ever been through such regret, he explained that young people should live sincerely, even if they later regret things. When they fall, they should have a place to return to. He told Natsu to live her life how she wanted. Because her father believed there was nothing in this world that couldn't be undone, Natsu gently asked him not to drink too much. But her father smiled and said he wanted to get drunk with her. Natsu then showed him a souvenir she had brought. It was a refreshing drink called frozen snow. Her father said he would try it later. Meanwhile, we shifted to the blonde woman, Suzuki, who was trying to seduce a man into drinking a dangerous sake that turns people into demons. She told him that the sake corrupts the soul. The man was terrified, but she went on, explaining that it implants evil and malice into people. No matter how much they try to hide it or pretend otherwise, their inner darkness can't be suppressed. The man nervously asked Suzuki what she wanted from him. She told him all he had to do was stir up emotions, jealousy, lust, pride, and that she gathers all those evil thoughts, drawing them into a corner of the heart. From there, she awakens the true nature hidden behind a calm, composed face, corrupting it. That corruption turns into a cold, defiled hatred that spreads like snow, white and pure on the surface, but filled with malevolence. She then chillingly asked, when everyone is tainted with hatred, will it even be noticed? We then moved to the frozen snow store. The store owner was thrilled about the large quantity of sake he had, confident it would make him the #1 merchant in Ito. Just then, Genta arrived. The shopkeeper greeted him, recognizing him from 2 years ago, when Genta had saved him from a demon in the warehouse. He thanked Genta but said he couldn't just barge in. Genta explained he was looking for a sake called Frozen Snow. The store owner confirmed that he had just received a new batch. At that moment, a Kitsu appeared, surprising the owner. All the sake was indeed stored in that place. Genta stepped forward, intimidating the shopkeeper and causing him to fall to the ground. The man nervously offered some sake, but Genta demanded to know its origin. The shopkeeper refused, saying his livelihood depended on it. In response, Genta unsheathed his sword, terrifying the man into answering. We then moved to Natsu's house. Her father asked if she wanted some sake. She hesitated, but he poured her a cup anyway. She drank it but didn't like the taste. Then he asked her to pour a cup for him. When he tasted it, he found it delicious. Back at the shop, Genta told the owner that there had been increasing cases of violence after people drank this sake. Everyone involved had consumed frozen snow, and Genta was convinced it wasn't normal alcohol. He again pressed the man for the source. This time, the store owner confessed. He said it came from a spring on Manoyama in Sagami. He claimed to have only filled a few bottles. Genta, sensing the man's fatalism, accused him of having a death wish. The man pleaded, swearing he was telling the truth and begging Genta to believe him. As Genta asked more questions, a blonde woman, likely Suzu, appeared and said the sake was meant to corrupt people. Genta was shocked, recalling that the shopkeeper had mentioned a blonde woman. She warned him that continued consumption would lead to total corruption, that everyone who overindulged had lost their minds. She added that there was nothing inherently wrong with alcohol. It was the intent behind it that mattered. But since the man was selling it anyway, Genta concluded that he was just another piece of scum. Akitsu agreed, saying the man was useless, just a greedy merchant. Still, at least they now knew the source of the chaos, frozen snow. He suggested they destroy the sake first, then head to Manoyama, which terrified the store owner. The man began shouting at them, but Genta, consumed with rage, attacked him without hesitation. Grabbing him by the neck, Genta nearly choked the man to death. He demanded to know everything about the blonde woman, clearly on the edge of losing control. However, Genta was suddenly punched by Akitsu, who yelled at him to let the man go. Akitsu winced from the pain in his own hand due to Genta's overwhelming strength and warned him that the man was nearly dead. He asked if Genta had gotten any useful information about the blonde woman. Genta replied that he hadn't. Akitsu said he wouldn't force the man to speak, but if Genta ended up killing him, then Akitsu would be forced to kill Genta in turn. Realizing Akitsu was right, Genta calmed down and was grateful he had been stopped. Akitsu was touched when Genta thanked him after the punch. Then, in a panic, the shopkeeper drank the sake, terrified that they were about to take it away from him. Akitsu warned him not to drink it so recklessly, but the man was desperate. Genta tried to caution him about overindulgence, warning that once crossed, there was no way back. Suddenly, the shopkeeper began to change. His body started transforming, his appearance becoming monstrous. Genta and Akitsu quickly fled the store, suspecting an explosion might follow. Outside, Genta reflected grimly that hatred lies dormant in everyone's heart, and that this cursed sake amplifies that hatred, consuming people and turning them into demons. He realized that frozen snow sake was designed with one purpose: to create demons. As expected, a demon emerged from the shop. Genta prepared to fight. He struck the demon, but his punches had no effect. He hit it again, but still no damage. Then, the beast retaliated, sending Genta flying with a heavy blow. Akitsu, observing Genta's lack of proper technique, thought that Genta's fighting style was unrefined. The demon resembled a puffed-up bird, its movements awkward, its next attack easy to read. Still, it needed to be handled carefully. Genta struck again and again, but nothing worked. He launched more attacks, all ineffective. Akitsu then joined in, using his strength to distract the demon with multiple hits, buying Genta time to find an opening. But Genta still couldn't land a solid blow. He narrowly dodged a deadly strike. Akitsu realized the shopkeeper had truly turned into a powerful demon, and this power wasn't accidental. Genta began to suspect that everything, the spring on Manoyama, was a trap from the beginning. He wondered if it was all artificially created, and worse, if that woman was the one behind it. As the demon locked into combat with Akitsu's magical weapon, Akitsu pondered, who was this mysterious woman with the power to create such destruction? Genta, meanwhile, thought about his sister, Suzun. A deep, painful doubt crept into him. Could she be behind this? Sensing Genta's distress, Akitsu asked why he was so upset. Genta told him there was no time. Natsu's father had been drinking frozen snow almost every night. Akitsu immediately understood the danger and urged Genta to go and save them while he handled the demon. Genta hesitated, not wanting to leave Akitsu behind, but Akitsu firmly told him not to underestimate his own power. He assured Genta he wasn't weak enough to worry a demon and told him to hurry. Moved, Genta thanked him and ran off. Then, Akitsu activated his magic. He conjured a gigantic warrior, a spectral fighter stronger than any demon, and sent it charging into battle. The demon turned its attention to the massive figure and roared, engaging in a new intense battle. We shifted to Genta, who was rushing toward Natsu. At that moment, Natsu's father was drinking with his daughter. Genta managed to reach them just in time and saved Natsu from her transformed father. Making sure Natsu was safe, he prepared to face the demon. Natsu, however, was overcome with fear for her father. Back with Akitsu, he succeeded in beheading the demon that Genta had left for him. Though the threat was defeated, Akitsu realized the aftermath would carry severe consequences. Returning to Genta, he was attacked by the demon. He blocked the blow and fought back with several strikes. In the middle of the fight, memories of drinking with Natsu's father and their peaceful times together came rushing back. Distracted by these thoughts, he was struck and badly injured. Lying on the ground, Genta reflected on his strength and how many demons he had defeated, but he also admitted to himself that there was a weakness in his heart he couldn't overcome. Then he remembered Sheri, his ex-girlfriend, and the moment she had once told him that they were alike, that he thought differently from others and chose to live his own way. Returning to the present, he picked up a bottle of frozen snow from the ground. As the demon advanced toward Natsu, Genta drank the cursed sake in an attempt to gain more power, but he still felt weak. He hated that feeling. Then, Genta transformed into a demon himself. He confronted Natsu's father, revealing that his wife had been kidnapped by a demon and his son had eloped with a woman. He had fallen into darkness too, becoming a demon, a twisted irony. He then revealed his true name, Kikin, and that his purpose was to eliminate evil people. The demon attacked him, but Genta dodged and knocked it to the ground, throwing it out of the house. As he approached step by step, Genta remembered his father, his sister Suzun, and all the people he loved. With one final rush, he struck the demon and whispered, "Goodbye, my friend," eliminating Natsu's father in a single blow. Natsu watched in shock and asked, "What is this?" Genta approached to comfort her, but she was afraid and backed away, begging him not to come closer. Overwhelmed by grief and rage, she lashed out at him for what had happened to her father. Akitsu arrived and told Genta that his opponent had been formidable, but Genta expressed regret, saying he wished he had been the one to die instead. This shocked Akitsu, since it was unlike Genta to say such things. But with both demons gone, the incident appeared to be over. Genta confirmed it was finished. All that remained was to clean up the aftermath. The next day, Genta and Akitsu set off for the seabed where the cursed sake originated. Akitsu, exhausted from the journey, asked Genta to slow down. As night fell again, Akitsu grew frustrated, especially knowing they were heading to the seabed. He asked Genta if he was worried about the lingering effects of Yukino Nagori, but Genta remained silent. Akitsu, suspecting Genta knew more than he let on, pressed him again. Genta asked how the drink was made. Akitsu explained the brewing method, mixing koji with steamed rice and water. Genta confirmed that was right and said they'd do the same with the remaining Yukino Nagori. Akitsu was puzzled, saying simply adding koji to a spring hadn't yielded anything. Genta mentioned something called konishi, a drink that adds flavor by soaking fruits and herbs. Akitsu realized there had to be another component turning people into demons. The one responsible must be the blonde-haired woman. Genta was sure a corpse was missing from the spring. Feeling the chill and fatigue, Akitsu lay on the ground, unsure why he had followed Genta this far. But Genta knew it was because he wanted to uncover the truth about Yukino Nagori. Akitsu admitted it, though he felt it didn't suit him. Then, in the middle of winter, flowers bloomed, surprising Akitsu. But Genta knew what it meant. He softly spoke the name, Shiriuki. Akitsu, puzzled, asked, "What is this?" For the first time, Genta tasted Yukino Nagori. He felt immense weakness and nostalgia. It didn't seem to be fueled by hatred. Instead, the effect of Yukino Nagori seemed to lie in the hearts of the lost. It was a drink born from memories still lingering in the world. Akitsu thought it was a bad idea, believing it turned people into evil beings, and asked what kind of grudge was behind it. But Genta knew it wasn't designed with malicious intent. Then Akitsu smelled something strange and asked about it. Genta identified it as sumagoro. Akitsu felt relieved he could finally rest, his legs aching, and his act of pretending to be weak was over. Genta walked on alone and was amazed to see more flowers blooming. He reached the spring and descended into it. There, he muttered that she wanted him to find the spring and was waiting for hatred to overflow and turn people evil. Inside the spring, he found a skeleton dressed in a costume. As he picked it up, memories of Sheri, his beloved, flooded his mind. He remembered that he belonged to her. He hadn't realized her body had been taken. Suddenly, Sheri appeared and apologized for causing him pain. Genta looked at her and said he was Mikimori, and it was only natural for him to use his sword to protect her. Then, light crystals emerged from her body as she said goodbye and disappeared. He looked up at the sky and silently bid her farewell. Later, Genta and Akitsu visited a sweet shop. Akitsu mentioned that rumors about evil creatures had started to decline, which should help settle the situation, possibly also because Amato had disappeared. However, the snow in Ito had begun to melt, turning into water and causing chaos. Genta realized that this was why the people of Ito were protesting. Akitsu explained that it was the government's fault. Recently, the people of Oei had sent military forces to foreign countries, which was making the citizens anxious. But things couldn't go on like this forever. All they could do now was defeat the evil ones. They couldn't do anything about the passage of time. Despite that, the blonde-haired woman kept distracting Genta's thoughts. Akitsu asked if Genta believed she was planning something else. Genta was sure of it, but Akitsu said there was no point in dwelling on it now. Then, Akitsu left money for the restaurant owner and told Genta that he was leaving because he was worried about his students. He asked Genta to look into things on his behalf. He added that if anyone gave him sumagoro, he would come find them immediately. Genta promised to do so if the opportunity arose. Then, Akitsu departed. Afterward, Genta went to Sadana's restaurant. Obi welcomed him warmly, noting she hadn't seen him in a long time. Sadana also greeted him, saying it was unusual for Genta to be gone for so long. Genta explained that he had many things to take care of. Obi was happy to see him return, especially since they didn't have many regular customers anymore. She offered him a drink and mentioned that Mi had come for lunch as usual, and Oniji and Zenji had also been there. Then, Obi served him his meal. After eating, Genta asked Sadana if the food's flavor had changed. Sadana replied that he hadn't changed anything, though Genta thought he must have just imagined the difference, which surprised both Sadana and Obi. After finishing his meal, Genta got up to leave. Obi asked him to wait so she could walk with him for a bit. As they walked, Obi noted how cold the weather had become and asked Genta if he was okay, considering everything that had happened. Genta apologized for worrying her. To Obi, it was simply a matter of looking after a regular customer. Then she stopped and bid him farewell, but paused again to ask if he remembered Jin Shaoji. After that, she left. Genta continued to watch her go and quietly told himself that he remembered they were the flowers that bloomed in the harsh winter, heralding the arrival of spring. Finally, we moved to Suzun, who was at the spring. She softly told herself that the snow had been dyed white, even if no one could see it at night.